Welcome to the 59th episode of the Nerdom and Other Nonsense anime podcast. Today, we are bringing you the summer 2018 season's 5th and 6th week of shows. As always, we include timestamps in the description of the YouTube video and the podcast feed if you only want to hear about one or two specific shows, since we spoil fucking everything. My name is Kat, and oh no. Anon, Oni-chan daisuki. Anata baka. Moi cute. Oh my god, that was bad. What the fuck did you do? You little bitches.
That was not me.
You're just a moe slut. Listen to Bcom and wouldn't make me a moe slut with him. If you want
listeners, please write in 5-star reviews about how much you want Kat to say that stuff again next time.
If you really just wanted me to
much.
call you Oni-san, Bcom, you could have just told me. You didn't have to put it.
Look, I didn't. Okay, I could have written Oni-san. I wrote Oni-chan. I could have written Oni-sama. I didn't even go.
Oh my gosh, Oni-sama. Oh my goodness.
Okay.
I mean, I have no
Nobody's figured
problem
out
saying
Bcom and I are here.
whatever the fuck you want me to say. So, you know.
Nobody cares about us, Leo.
You know,
It's okay.
you know where a great place is to say stuff now? Our Discord.
Oh, yes.
We have a Discord?
We do.
Oh, I should delete that. I don't want a Discord.
Well, you spent a lot of time making it, so.
Yes, I made it so there's about, how would you say, 77 channels?
Oh,
80
fuck.
channels?
I don't even know. There's a shit ton of channels. Bcom and his channels.
For everything.
Uh-huh.
There's a channel for sports.
There is one of
There's a
those.
channel for fitness.
There is.
There's lots of anime channels. There's also like 15 separate spoiler channels, which is fantastic.
Some of those will be deleted later, I'm sure.
Maybe.
No.
Yeah, so you'll probably just leave a link in the description once you become.
Yeah, there will be a link to the Discord and invite link for the YouTube description and in the podcast
Yeah,
feed.
guys,
So,
seriously,
hit us up.
come down and like check us out. Like, I'm probably gonna be popping in there while I study my CPA exam, and we can all chill and study together. I know like the music channel has been really popular, so if you want to like share what you're listening to in terms of music, that'd be fun. I'm always down to hear what you guys like. And I'm gonna be hosting like movie nights like once every couple weeks, so come down for that. It'd be fun.
And yeah, we'll probably be doing some anime group watches in the future as well as possibly some drink your way through watches.
Oh my
those would be
goodness.
so much fun.
I do not guarantee that there will not be karaoke if we're gonna do a drink your way through thing on Discord.
Oh, God.
Because every time
Actually,
I've done
you know
something
what
like that on Discord, it's resulted in karaoke. So
Leo, you know what I really want to do is a drink your way through Eromanga Sensei. Where we drink our way through us drinking our way through. It's so meta. It would be fantastic.
Oh, jeez. I don't know about that, man.
oh,
Are we
man.
pre-gaming before that one? Because it's going to be necessary.
Probably. You know what else you need to pre-game before? Swimming, apparently. You need to do a lot of pre-gaming. Otherwise, you just turn into an emo guy that nobody likes in a show called Free Dive to the Future.
Yep.
All right, so I'll get started with episode 5, an ominous workout. So yeah, the opening scene is this comedy bit about the Iwatobi Swim Club driving on their way to their training camp for the summer with the Samazuka guys and the Sofukan Academy guys. And like this would be fine, except Amakata Sensei, their teacher or their advisor, is just like this insane driver and is making everybody like throw up in the back seat, and it's pretty hilarious.
Oh, like her name from... Darn, it's so old.
Shirobako?
No, it's a very old comedy, and I forget it.
Oh, okay.
Move on. I'll try to remember the name.
So Sosuke is at the camp as an alumnus of Samazuka, and it turns out that Natsuya Kirishima has also returned from Australia, and he's an alumnus of Sofukan, so they're kind of like the captains there, or like the alumni there to like help the new guys out, like the new students out. Like one of the interesting moments in this episode is when all the guys get into their swimming gear. Go basically just creams herself over all of their muscles. But Ayumu, like the new manager, she's like just disappointed that none of the guys are pudgy, because I guess she likes pudgy guys. So wow, that was really strong characterization from Koani there. She's the opposite of Go. How unique. Wow. So yeah, this episode, Nagisa takes one of their club's new swimmers, Romeo-kun, under his wing, and Romeo's having trouble getting started at the beginning of races because of his nerves. He has a lot of trouble. He's like seconds behind the whistle, like it's not even close. And we find out this is because he has a fear of false starting like he did in his last high school tournament.
Well, and that
which,
can be a real thing. Like if you false start once, it can cause like weird shit because then you start second guessing yourself. I get that. It's tough.
Oh.
Yeah, that's totally true.
Yeah, speaking of the very bad teacher driver, it's an old anime called Amazanga Daioh. And there's a teacher. Yeah, and the teacher's, I think it's Yukari-chan, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
That's
she just drives like a maniac.
Yeah, she's absolutely awful at it. And like, you see them get out of the car at one point, and they're just like, it's like they've seen death themselves. It's great. Yeah, I'm right. It is Yukari.
I always love that joke in anime, just like the crazy driver who you wouldn't expect.
Weirdly.
So meanwhile, Rei takes this other new student in the swim club, Shizuru, under his wing, who is having a lot of trouble with his backstroke, but is otherwise like mostly fine. Like he's pretty talented. But yeah, we find out more about Shizuru when they're like eating Ayumu's like ultra spicy curry that she made for the team for dinner.
Oh, that sounds
he takes
so
out like
good.
a little box of seaweed.
Ultra spicy curry.
Oh yeah. I had some amazingly spicy Szechuan food down in southern New Jersey this weekend. It was incredibly good. I loved it.
Okay.
It was very spicy. So yeah, he takes out this like little box of seaweed, and his family runs a seaweed shop, and they go skin diving to gather like that and other like seafood
but, like,
for their seafood
was
restaurant.
it a little box of seaweed, Bcom? Because what I remember is him
It
piling
was pretty big.
like a fucking shit ton of seaweed on this dude's plate. So I don't know about little box.
He needs those antioxidants. So, yeah, that's why he's such a good swimmer, right? Though, because his family have been doing that. As a side note, Romeo talks about how there's a restaurant in New York City known for making the spiciest curry in the world. And I was like, what the fuck are they talking about? And so I looked it up. There is this place in the city called Brick Lane Curry House, which is a British Indian curry. They serve one called Fall, which is like Phaal, and it uses very spicy peppers, including Carolina Reaper peppers, to end up at like 2.2 million Scoville units of heat, which is like 10,000 times spicier than Tabasco sauce. And like Nagisa says in the show, like when the chef makes the curry in the kitchen, he has to actually put on a freaking gas mask so he doesn't choke on the spicy fumes.
I've seen a lot of people who make hot sauce do that.
Since you live near,
they even put the gloves on too.
New York City.
No, Cat.
Are you going to?
No, thank you.
No, okay. What if I came to visit you one day? Would you go with me, and we could like challenge each other to eating the spicy shit?
I'm so like mediocre at spicy food. Like I would just die. Like I was watching the people in the video, like they were like tears streaming down their faces. Like, you know, like when people eat like super hot peppers, like they start like vomiting up like spit and like dying and just crying all over the place. It would not be a pretty picture.
It would be a bonding experience. We would both probably like vomit together. We'd laugh about it. Take a couple pictures. Be good.
How about if Leo pays for my expansion of Destiny 2 Forsaken?
No,
What does that even have to do with anything, Bcom?
Because I'm not going to do this for nothing. I'm just not going to kill myself for no reason.
Listen, you can't just put that out there. That has nothing to do with this.
Yes, I can. I just did. This is my podcast, and your guys, I can do whatever I
want.
want.
It's your podcast now. I see how
and I said, and your guys' podcast. It's a communist collective.
Kat, we know you probably have a better heat tolerance since you had that nice pepper story. And if Bcom's to be believed, you would probably be eating it, and he'd be dying already, and you're just like, come on, dude.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure I would also be suffering. Like, let's be real. I'm not like God, okay? I'm sure I would be suffering. Yeah. I'm sure there would be tears. I like want to do it. I know I'll regret it. I still want to do it. So
yeah, but just say you did it is just the best part. Right.
Exactly.
All right, so back to Free. We'll figure that out later. There's a scene where Sosuke and Natsuya chat for a little bit, and here we find out that Sosuke's doctor did tell him that he'd be able to swim again if he continued his rehab, but that his shoulder wouldn't be strong enough to compete unless he underwent surgery. So that's the decision he needs to make. Whether, like, I think Natsuya like correctly assumes that if the procedure goes badly, he won't be able to compete. And I feel like there was kind of like a mistranslation because otherwise this whole section is really dumb. Like, if Sosuke can't compete anyway, then there's no downside to having the surgery, because at least it gives him a chance to be able to compete. Mm-hmm. I think what they were trying to convey is that if he doesn't get the surgery, he can still swim. Mm-hmm. Like, he just can't competitively swim. But if he does get the surgery, I think he might never be able to swim again because his shoulder might be that screwed up. I don't know. It just seemed like the only option for him would be to get the surgery from the way that they talked about it. It didn't make much sense to me. Like,
I thought it was interesting how the coin flip went. You need to explain that first, though.
Yeah.
Hold on. Go ahead.
Well, you can talk about that part, yeah, because it is interesting.
Well, because I liked the fact that he was like, you know what? Never mind. I want to make my own decision, because that's how I feel like I would feel. Because, like, you don't want someone else to decide something like that for you, right? Like, as hard as it is to make that decision.
Exactly. Like, even and as unfair as it might be, like, you might end up like blaming that person,
yeah,
for the bad flip. You want to make that decision yourself. If it's like a life-changing thing, it's going to change everything about how you think of yourself and all that. You need to make that decision.
I almost also wonder if Natsuya offered it to like make him make a decision, because when I don't know about you, but when someone like tells me what they think that I should do, oftentimes that's when I know then what I actually want to do, where I didn't know before they said their opinion, but like them saying their opinion makes me decide if I agree with it or not. I don't know if that's the way you are, but I almost
sometimes I'll do that. I don't know. I try to make decisions myself without other people's influence a lot of the time.
Well, but sometimes
I do want to hear opinions.
Yeah, like sometimes it'll be like, I think this, and I'll be like, oh, I don't agree with that at all, and then like I'll go the opposite way. So it's sometimes like someone else being like, I'm gonna tell you what I think, kind of almost makes you decide what you think. I almost wonder if that's what he was trying to do for him.
I think that's true. Yeah, I think he was trying to push him in the right direction. The end of the show, like the training camp ends with a medley relay that Nagisa and Rei came up with, and it helps Romeo to get over his fear of false starting. He has like a great handoff between him and Rei. And they also incorporate this advice that he got earlier from Sosuke, and like he took it all to heart. And so like, yeah, it was a pretty decent relay, pretty decent like guitar solo being played like during the relay, but like otherwise not like a very good episode. Like, it was just an okay episode.
I'm irritated because they promised me sports shit at the beginning of this season, and they're not giving it to me. Yeah. I expected it.
Well, they've had to build up all these weird character arcs because they've introduced so many new characters.
It's so dumb that they introduced these new characters. It's so dumb. They did not. And let's not
pretend that it's not convenient that like Sosuke and Natsuya are both alumni, and they like both show up at this camp, and like so they can all be there in the same place too. Like, a lot of like convenient convergence is happening and like continues to happen.
They have too many fucking Bishis in this show. They need to kick out at least half of these bitches and be like, these are the people we're focusing on. And they're not doing that.
I mean, this character list Bcom's got on here is insane.
It's bullshit is what it is. Big. It's bullshit.
What is this, Attack on Titan?
They already took a bloated show full of drama and characters, and they added fucking a lot more. I'm pissed off. You know what? You know what this is? The new fucking director screwed this shit up. Shame on you. Yeah. Shame on you.
Honestly, maybe he did. Yeah. All right. Well, tell us about episode 6 and this mermaid that I totally called.
All right. So the episode starts with us learning a little bit more about Ikiya and Hiyori and their relationship. So it's from Hiyori's point of view, and he talks a lot about how he was a loner growing up, and he kind of acts like his parents working all the time was the cause of this, but I don't really see him playing with like other kids either, so I don't really think that's what's going on. I think he's just like a loner type of person. Then he met Ikiya, and it kind of seems like they both are sort of like that loner personality, and so they really clicked. Throughout the episode, you get a lot of this like, I can't let them see my weakness, or they'll hold it against me and they'll leave emo bullshit. Because like, isn't that kind of what he implies? Is like, oh, Haru saw me almost drown, and that's why he left me, because he saw me being weak. It was so ridiculous. It was almost comical. I was like, are you fucking kidding?
And it's like, and they're all in college. Like, get over it already.
That's some shit you say. Like that dramatic line that he says, like, I can't let anyone see my weakness or they'll leave. That's some shit you say when you're 14 and you think that, like, the world revolves around you and you're the only one that's ever gone through this bullshit. Not when you're in college, okay?
Yeah.
It's pretty ridiculous.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous. I don't know. So basically, Hiyori feels a lot of... At first, I was sort of confused about what he was feeling, because Hiyori goes through this whole story, like the mermaid story, basically like the Little Mermaid, where the prince, who in this case I guess is Ikuya, thinks that the girl, who would be Hiyori, saved him. But it's actually the mermaid who saved the prince, not the girl, which I'm assuming that's Haru. But honestly, like, I don't really think it would matter that much, like, who plucked him out of the water when he almost drowned, because, like, there's so many people around, like, one of them was gonna do it. You know what I mean? So I don't really...
Actually, the key is that, like, Hiyori sees himself as the mermaid who truly saved the prince, Ikiya, but, like, Ikiya fell asleep and, like, or was in a coma, and, like, when he woke up, the first person he sees is Haru, who is, like, you know, the human girl and like, the Little Mermaid.
I see.
So, like,
there's, like, weird... I don't know. Like, there's a lot of weird dynamics between Hiyori and Haru, where, like, Hiyori is clearly very jealous of Haru, and I just don't... I don't know. It's, like, even... Like, I mean, I get it. I've had weird, like, triad friendships with girls where, like, people are like, but she's my best friend. But she's my best friend. But, like, you get older and you get over that. Like, they're kind of acting really immature. I don't know. It's weird.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
They definitely are.
It is. It's just strange.
This all sounds so silly.
But yeah, so we get past that scene. Makoto seems really happy with his new job. They have this whole scene where he's like coaching little kids, and it's all very cute, but I didn't really get much out of it.
I don't even know why that scene was in this episode.
I don't know.
All. Like,
it's just fan service. I think.
Why was that even here? It was just such a weird, like, cutaway to, like, nothing. It's just like another sign that they're, like, juggling so many storylines at once that they don't know what to focus on.
Exactly.
And they don't. It's weird. It just doesn't seem like correctly put together. I don't know.
This fucking director. I'm gonna come to his house and, like, spank him on the ass a few times and be like, that's what you get, and then leave.
Oh my god.
What? What?
Okay. Who is this director?
I did not mean that as a literal threat. I will not be going to Japan.
I don't know, maybe they're intrigued. Maybe he got their
Maybe he's into it, is what you're saying?
Jerry Jewell? Am I looking at this right?
No, that's definitely not the director.
That's ADR director. He's not listed on my anime list.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Are you okay, Kat?
I am fine. So I noticed in the next scene, there's this, like, cubed jelly drink that Hiyori is eating / drinking. And I can't figure out what it is, because it looks like bubble tea, but it's clearly carbonated. Like, is that cubed jelly in there, like, the same stuff that's in bubble tea?
Like tapioca? I mean, it might be. I'm not sure. I wasn't paying attention to that.
Oh, I fucking was.
Sounds good, though.
I was looking at... I, like, rewound, like, 3 times to look at that. That looked amazing. Oh, my God. Everyone, if you didn't notice... even if you're not watching the show, you should look up, like, this... Just the gif of this. I should post it on Twitter or something. It's pretty. It looks pretty
try
good.
And find it if you can.
I'll be posting that on Twitter later. It looks pretty damn good, and I, like, really wanted to eat it.
Put it in the Discord too.
I will.
Oh yeah, we'll put it in the Discord under the correct channel, which is Current Anime.
Oh my god. This dude is going to be like the Nazi of channels. I'm going to have to be like,
Pretty
listen,
much.
Bcom, you got to slow your roll a little bit. So,
Yeah, but don't act like you didn't see that coming.
I mean, yeah, I did see it coming. It's okay. Okay, so then the gang from high school, including Asahi, gets together. And they all agree that they're going to try to talk to Ikuya again, which, I mean, that's good. We learned that one weird old dude his name is Ryuji, and that he used to be a swim coach, and he specializes in, like, strength. And apparently he also has a food blog. He's kind of, I'm sure he'll become important later. I'm sure that's what they're setting it up as.
Well, yeah, we find out that he was like a former swimmer too, right?
Yeah, like that's why he's a swim coach, because he was a former like swimmer and then he quit suddenly.
Yeah.
But really the important thing is that he was a swim coach, because I'm assuming that he's going to coach one of them. So,
most likely,
yes.
well, we see at the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then there's some more muscle jokes with the other trainer, the blonde one. And I'm just like, dude, we get it. Like, you want to fuck all of these guys. I understand. You're into muscles. I get it.
Wow.
I don't know. And then then we go back to the Ikuya is emo arc. There's this slide scene. Holy shit.
The slide scene.
He, like, gets off the swings or whatever Ikuya does, and he's like, I gave up my heart in order to get stronger. Another emo line. He should be, like, the lead singer in like, The Used or something, and he should be wearing only women's jeans. That's what I get from this. Stop it with the emo shit. Oh, my God. So, like, he says that line, which just made me crack up. Then he goes down the slide, and there's this blatant yaoi scene where, like, Hiyori is, like, over him on the slide, and it's, like, perfect position if he, like, lifted up his legs to fuck the shit out of him. And I was just like, yes, Hiyori, pound this dude. Like, fuck the emo right out of him. God knows I'm
like
done.
Dumb, like, dubstep music that, like, comes in right at that moment when he pulls him down the slide. I couldn't anymore. I looked away, started laughing hysterically, and I was like, what is even this show anymore? It's so ridiculous.
It was pretty bad. Like, it was obvious that the director was like, okay, this is getting boring for everyone. Even the hardcore yaoi bitches are kind of done. Like, we need to give them something. So this is what they gave us. And it was very, like, blatant, but it's not enough to save the show at this point. Like, you've already fucked it up. Like, I don't know what to tell you, dude. So basically, the end of this episode is you find out Hiyori is dealing with some major possessive jealousy issues, and he needs to just deal with that, because, like, it's not good. It's not healthy. Okay.
Yeah.
So. Yep.
It's ridiculous. Like, just somebody needs to tell him, like, it's unhealthy, to build your entire life and self-worth around, like, some other person you've just glommed onto as your one and only friend.
Yeah.
Like, obviously he needs a wake-up call, but it's just been, like, excruciating to get to that point, and everybody is just acting so dumb and, like, middle schooler like, and they're all in college, and it's just annoying.
It's like their bodies grew up, but their brains are still in middle school in season 1.
I think this is a good lesson for, like, those yaoi fans and just, like, girls in general, like, who are, like, looking at these bishi boys as, like, their idols, and, like, they're like shipping them, and they're like, oh, which one is my favorite, blah blah blah. Because when you spend too much time with them, you find out they're vacuous, empty nothings.
Oh, I wonder what else.
Don't have anything to offer besides what they were in middle school, and they will never be any more than that. And because they were never written to be. They were written to be one season long, and it was a great season, and then they're nothing after that. At least that's what this show is pointing out to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, like, if they had done this well, it could have been something, but they decided to just not care enough about it, apparently, and have fucked it all to hell.
Yeah.
And honestly, what you just said could apply to a lot of moe shows too, Bcom. I hope you know.
Oh, absolutely.
So, I totally agree that is true of the show. especially season 3, but it is also true of a lot of other things. So
Yeah, that's for sure.
This show gives me flashbacks of like when I was 8 and my mom would be watching like daytime television and I'd look to see what it is and it's like guiding light and then like my poor little brain's like, this is horrible.
Guiding light.
I'm getting flashbacks of that, dude.
Oh man. Well, before you have too many crazy flashbacks, why don't you take us into the next show, Leo?
All right. So Sirius the Jaeger, episode 5, The Frankenstein. Yuli gets to have a nice chat with his brother, who's definitely a vampire now, if there was any doubt left. The whole conversation comes down to that Yuli is a Jaeger now, and since Mikhail is a vampire, they will eventually have to like kill each other, and either this episode or the next one, he has to like make a decision if they're going to be enemies or not. Dorothea hilariously sniffs out Now's like of Yuli and kind of teases her for it. Also, the Frankenstein monster seems to be transported on the same train that everybody is ironically traveling on. The Hyakoto group. There's a lot.
Hyako group.
Hyako?
Yeah.
Hyako. Why is it? Whatever. I don't care. There's stuff I didn't bring up, like the physics in this show. I'm just like, okay, whatever. So
it's a little bit nothing like really drove me nuts, but like there are some like fun, crazy moments. Yeah.
Where there's the car scene. Where he's like, follow the train, and he immediately like takes like a 15-foot drop off a cliff. The car's fine, but then they hit a body and it takes out the wheel. I'm like, what?
To me, that was like very Princess Principal, to be honest. Though, because like remember when their car was driving all over the city like nuts?
Actually, a lot of things about the show remind me of Princess Principal. To be fair,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so the Hikato group attacks a train and boards it looking for Kirshner, who double-crossed them or whatever he did. I will also like to note the Hikato group is using bows and arrows and katanas against a train with trained soldiers who have guns.
Well, it worked out in Violet Evergarden, so why not here?
Yeah, but she was a super soldier, so...
But Leo, I don't think you understand. Aesthetics need to be adhered to. Don't you understand?
Yes.
Right. So Kirshner, by the way, he's just like, all right, I'm out, and he just like casually walks off into the woods. I'm like, okay. The group finds the monster, and the leader of the group is like very fascinated by it, but he doesn't realize that the Mad Doctor, Clarween, is like secretly in like this little booth in the corner controlling it.
Isn't he like, we can use this, and gets like all excited, and then just gets like killed immediately.
Yeah. So of course, when he later turns, he later turns the thing onto the chief of the Hikato, and he gets decapitated, and it's just immediately dead.
And I was really disappointed in this because I remember last podcast I was saying like I was interested in the show because there were 3 different groups all vying for power, and forget all that because
this one gets shut down because when the rest of his followers find out, they're just like, oh shit, so they just like throw a bunch of coal into the train to get going real fast and just like abandon ship.
I think that there will still be 3 groups though, because if you think about it, the Japanese government is like investigating these 2 groups like more and more as the episodes go on, and so I could see them becoming
one
like
guy Iba.
Yeah, so I could see them becoming like more of a third party, you know.
The military and the police. Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah, and this is the part where Fallon drives the car off a cliff, and it's totally fine. And they catch up to the train, and Philip and Fallon both jump on to help Dorothea with the fight of the vampires. Now shows up also with them, and she helps. Then they defeat the 2 vampires they're facing, and then they run across Iba. And then this is kind of when Iba finds out vampires are real. But one of the vampires isn't dead, and like it gets up and lunges at one of the guards, but now who is like trained most of her life with a sword, just like takes a soldier's sword and just
it was fucking badass. It wasn't kind of cool, Leo. It was fucking badass. Like they hadn't told us anything about this before, so you weren't expecting that at all from her. And then she just does it.
What? I was 100% expecting that from her.
Were you? I was not.
Because she's been training in kendo the entire time.
But she's kind of a wimp. Like, I didn't expect her to actually do anything. Like, because there's a difference between knowing how to do it and doing it.
Yes.
She followed her crush onto a train, and then just before this, she leapt from one train car, leaving another train car onto the other one. So she's got guts.
I was a little okay.
Guts.
I have to admit, I underestimated her because like all she's been doing is just like chasing after this dude like a lovesick bitch, and so I was like, oh, she has a personality other than being obsessed with him. So I like her a lot more now.
She will protect people. She wasn't able to like attack just out of like offensive. Like,
it's more of like a
taking
reflex,
people down.
right?
Yeah.
It was more like I need to protect these people, and that's what she did. So yeah.
So Yuli rushes ahead to stop the runaway train, and he ends up getting in a fight with the monster. It kind of eventually rips its like tubes off the walls and everything, and so that mad doctor loses control of them. And then, interesting, it's Mikao who shows up, and he ends up blowing the monster up with two trains, like at the train's boiler, the front of the train, and it like causes the train to finally like stop because it was about ready to go 100 miles an hour into the end of the roadblock.
I kind of think that Lily,
but
like in the end, will pick his brother, even though he talks a lot of shit about how he'll fight his brother. Because like, that's kind of why he does that.
Mikhail's like such a different person than what he was in the flashback, so it makes you wonder what changed him that much. Obviously, he's a vampire now, and it's going to fuck with you a little bit, but there's got to be more to the story.
Yeah.
I also really liked the moment when the Frankenstein got loose from its controls, like by pulling those hoses out, and then Yuli just jumps up in the air, does like a full split to get over him. I was like, damn, this dude's like really flexible. Like I couldn't do that shit. I would be just like in a hospital if I tried to do anything remotely like that. So I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah, besides that, I guess I could go on to the next episode because it kind of flows into the next one, too.
It picks right up.
So episode 6, Mockingbird Song. Kirshner gets word from Yevgraf, like the leader of like the elder vampires, basically, or whatever, that the Ark of Sirius isn't in the city after all. But before they leave, Kirshner wants to kill all the Jaegers who are after them. So Yuli isn't sure of what to do after his meeting with Mikhail last episode, but Willard basically gives him some choices. He tells him you can quit being a Jaeger and not have to fight against your brother at all, or possibly the Ark might be able to change Mikhail back into a living person if what he said about the Ark being able to kill or let live was true at the end of last episode. So that's basically what Yuli is considering as we move forward. And so meanwhile, Ryoko's father's like pissed when he finds out that she was on the train, and not only that, but used her sword to kill. And he tries to forbid her from touching the sword again, saying like she only needs her education to succeed him as the head of the household. But she stands up for herself and she tells her father she won't give up the sword.
She's just like, fuck no, I'll do what I want. And I was like, yes, girl, yes. You're becoming a person.
It was good.
I'm so happy.
I was really happy about that.
She has developed a lot these last episodes.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she tells him, like, there's things I can't learn from just studying books. Like, I need to go out and experience the world. It's the whole thing of, like, you can't protect me forever. I'm old enough to protect myself. And, like, to be a true leader or something like he is, she's going to need to experience these things. So Dorothea and Ryouko bond over the fact that, like, Dorothea also came from a well-off family. But once she saw vampires, she knew that she had to do something about them because she could never put them out of her mind again. She knew that they had to be taken care of somehow. And so that's why she's been fighting with V shipping ever since. And so Dorothea kind of like starts to take Ryouko under her wing because like she senses like a kinship there. Yeah, one thing I was kind of unclear on this episode is how Major Iba knew that Akimoto, like who was like the barkeep guy, who was Willard's friend, was going to be meeting for information. Like I must have missed something in a prior episode because like in any case, like Iba goes to meet with him, like because he tells the guys at the station like I need to go like find some information out. And like he reveals like he's from the army. Like I guess Akimoto was going to meet with his usual contact, which maybe was another police officer, or maybe Iba just knew about this contact somehow. But yeah, meanwhile, Akimoto like rushes back to the bar to call off this meeting like Willard had set up for him. But once he's there, he's attacked by vampires. And Willard shows up like just before Akimoto dies, and like is given like a note, and like then Willard like fights off the vampires who are like waiting to ambush him. And like it was like a quick burst of like violence, but it was also pretty awesome. I just really like the fight choreography in this show. It's like really visceral and like you feel it.
It is like pretty good. But my favorite, probably one of my favorite like fight scenes is probably the next one. So.
Oh yeah. So Willard's able to get word in advance to V shipping that the vampires are coming for him. So they set traps all over their mansion. But even so, like they're barely able to hold off because like a ton of fucking vampires start.
Okay, while they were setting up these traps, they're tying grenades to like posts in the houses, and I'm like, they're just planning on taking the whole place down with them.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, gosh,
you're like we're playing for keeps.
Ryouko. Oh, sorry. What were you saying, Kat?
I said they're like we're playing for keeps. We're gonna do everything we gotta do.
Yeah.
It's like,
there's like some brief conversations between Yuli and Philip about like whether Philip still blames him for the death of his parents, as they were killed by a Sirius who looks a lot like Mikhail.
I thought that like scene was interesting because to me that vampire who kills Philip's parents looks kind of different. Like he does look similar, but there are things about his face that look very different to me, and so I'm not sure if that's a drawing problem or if it was meant to be drawn differently and we're gonna find something out, or if it's supposed to be like his evolution as a character. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was hard to tell. I thought maybe it was like a younger, wilder version of Mikhail, or it could just be somebody completely different. I'm not sure, because I did notice that difference in the style as well, or at least in the character design. So yeah, and then like Ryoko's been given the job of like getting her father to like hide with everybody else from the household in a shed.
Oh my gosh! Because there's this moment where Ryouko is like, "There are monsters fucking coming, and we gotta go." And her dad's like, "You've gone insane. It's so sad."
Yeah, I love that.
And she's like, "No, bitch, we gotta go." Like, I was so happy. That was hilarious.
And then like her dad still wants to be like a hero, even when they're hiding and like he hears like his house like blowing up and stuff. He's like, "No, I will not let you." Actually really like this moment because he's like, "How could I face your mother in heaven if I let anything happen to you without like rushing out first?" And like she even like respects that from him, because like she understands that that's true. That's what a father would do. But yeah, to make things worse, like before it's even over, like Kirshner and Mikhail show up and they attack. But before it gets very far, like before the episode even ends, like it basically cuts off with them fighting against Yuli and Philip. Like Mikhail has basically trapped Philip against the wall, and so Kirshner is just fighting against Yuli. I don't think Mikhail wants to fight Yuli, so that's kind of why he like went straight for Philip, I think. But yeah, I'm curious to see where that goes.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm still enjoying the show. Like
I am too.
I'm very happy that Ryouko has become like a more active participant. Like I kind of like expected she would.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like where she's going. I've actually been I was bored with the show the last 2 episodes, kind of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It just wasn't grabbing my attention. I think it's just the storytelling. I just don't really like it or care for it. I don't think it's really that original or anything.
I don't think it's that original either. I think it's like pretty well executed. Like I'm not saying this is like the best show ever or anything.
It's like standard. It's like above average, like execution of a pretty standard story style, I would say.
Yeah.
And pretty solid production value for like today's anime, I would say. So yeah, I've been appreciating those parts of it more so than like the quality of the story necessarily. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of not a standard anime, Banana Fish.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Okay. So episode 5.
These 2 episodes.
From death to morning. Okay, so the episode 5 starts with Ash getting a bail like grant from Mr. Scott, that lawyer that Max has. Ash is kind of quiet and sad now that he's getting out, and Max is like, maybe I misjudged him. Maybe he is just a 16-year-old. Maybe or 17-year-old. But no, Max got it right the first time. It's all an act. So, like, after Ash leaves, Max is like, oh, yeah, I told Ash that Dino killed his brother. Oh, he's going for him. And, like, runs off to tell the lawyer. Meanwhile, Ash is, like, with the reporter and the rest of the gang. And he's like, oh, I love my brother so much. And, like, we should go see him because, like, he's going to be worried about me. And, like, all of them are all guilty and shit and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And they're finally like, we need to tell him. And so they tell him, not knowing that he already knows. And he tricks them by pretending to be, like, grieving and then tries to hijack the car. And the newspaper guy, I can't remember his name. It's eBay and
That's like eBay Shunichi or something. Yeah,
well, but eBay is the photographer. The newspaper guy is his friend.
Oh.
But yeah, so basically they almost get Ash, like, out of the car. They're like, no, you're not gonna hijack this. And then, like, Eiji goes around to the, like, driver's side of the car and is like, I'm gonna help you out. And, like, they escape together. Eiji and Ash.
Yes.
Like, I think it's funny because it's not like he would do a good job at all. He would have no idea how to drive that fucking car.
Oh yeah, I was like, how did he do that? But yeah, no, he's like, I'm gonna help you, and they get away, and then the two older dudes are, like, standing there like, oh shit, like, that wasn't good. And there's a scene after that where Dino and Arthur are talking. And Dino basically is like, no, banana fish is not a person. Banana fish is a drug, and it will, quote unquote, change the world. So that's interesting.
So obviously, like, different people have different ideas of what banana fish is, and I'm sure they're, like, all wrong at this point.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because I watched it on Amazon, and in my version, everybody referred to it as a drug. Dino referred to banana fish strictly as a drug, and Max said it was something. He didn't, like, it was an object of some sorts, not an actual person.
No,
So
in previous episodes, Max says he thinks it's a person.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he does.
but I think they've all come around to everybody thinking it's a drug now.
Oh, maybe. Okay, yeah. Because
It's
I guess
evolving.
he talked with Ash about it, and Ash also believes it's a drug. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's evolving because at first there were several people who thought it was a person, and, like, now they're kind of thinking, well, maybe it's not a person, maybe it's a drug. So who knows? So then Ash and Eiji go to see Shorter, and they catch a guy tailing them while they're going to see Shorter. And Ash wants to do everything himself at first, and he's like, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna kill Dino by myself, and blah blah blah, and, like, talking a bunch of shit. But even he knows that that's dumb and gets talked out of it. And then Eiji, they go into Eiji's backstory again, but I feel like every time they go into Eiji's backstory, they just say the same thing.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Like, they never elaborate more. They're just like, he used to be a sprinter, but then he was injured and he couldn't make himself jump anymore. So that's sad. And it's like, well, but, like, that's not all he did in his whole life, right?
I hope not, because, like, they make it seem like that way, and, like, his only motivation is that he doesn't want to quit on this trip because, well, one, he feels, like, indebted to eBay or Shunichi for bringing him to Japan to, like, basically try to cheer him up after his injury.
Yeah.
And then, like, I guess the second motivation now is also that obviously he feels indebted to Ash for having, like, letting his brother die, essentially.
As soon as this came up, I was like, wait, didn't we just do this story? And then I remembered an anime called After the Rain.
Yeah.
Okay, but this one is slightly different because he actually does, like, completely heal, right? Like, he doesn't have the issue anymore, but the issue is mental. So, like, he can't make himself
Akira
jump.
could have done the same thing.
Well,
He
yeah,
just had
but
to
it
go
is
through,
slightly different in that she
rehab,
had to
yeah.
go through, like, physical, like, you know,
They were both
therapy.
track injuries.
Well,
They
but
both
you have to
took it
think
very
they are in different places,
hard.
though. Like, he could physically do it if he mentally got himself to do it. She
They're
has
both
to go
falling
through.
in love with dudes older than them.
But
Yes.
but I imagine like the hesitation that he's feeling is kind of like when you try to jump off something that's really high, and, like, your brain is like, do it, but, like, your body won't let you do it. Have you ever like felt that?
No.
Yeah.
It's not like a rock climber or anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
I experience that all the time.
A good example of that.
You get over it pretty quick
Well,
if you stick with it for a while.
yeah. So like I'm imagining that's kind of what he's. I don't know, but yeah. So they talk about that some more, and I'm just kind of like, we already heard this. Then they switch to talking. They're with the help of a Chinese mob boss that Shorter knows. They go to his place. They're prepping to take out Dino. And they talk about how Dino owns this club that he disguises as a fish market where they sell kids to like older dudes. And
it's a restaurant.
But it's like a fish restaurant.
Yeah, it's called Club Cod. Mm-hmm. So I guess it's like a club, a restaurant. It's multiple
Club
things.
Cod.
But it's basically like a front. Yeah.
That is so obnoxious. I love it though. But like it's pretty obnoxious.
So I paused also because like when they're talking about the place, they like show like a picture of like a senator picking up a kid. And if you pause and read like what the inscription or like what the notes on the picture say, it's like, oh, this is the senator coming to pick up a kid. This is the 48th time he's picked up a boy from this club.
Yep.
The 48th time.
Yep.
What does he even do with the 47 other boys after he's through with them? Does he kill them? Is it like what? Like,
oh, they do say a bunch of them usually end up dead. So,
Jesus,
yeah.
48. God damn.
I mean, there are a lot of
that was a little
politicians
dark.
who have a lot of dark shit that they get up to.
Yeah.
That they find ways to get away with. So it doesn't surprise me if that were to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, but they decide to do it there because he's going to have less backup with him at that club to avoid scaring the clients. So they like set up this semi and they have Ash like on top of the semi. And I'm like, that's not a good idea. Like you could fall off. Like it's not that hard to fall off a semi. Like
yeah, he has nothing to hold on to on the top. There's like 8 times he should have been flung off that thing at like minimum
I
30 miles an hour.
Since they were planning this, like wouldn't you at least put some like foot hooks on there or something for you like to help? But no. So like they go to kill him. Ash is like on top of the semi that they're driving. Also, why did they pick a semi? God knows why. Maybe because it looked cool.
There's a box truck. I think he just needed the higher vantage point.
I don't know.
Just guessing.
But yeah, so Dino does get shot, but it's only in the shoulder. And the semi they're in gets pretty shot up too. And then they all jump in the river to get away, and they make it. Barely, but they make it. And then there's this scene at the end where they're like, okay, we made it out, and like now we're prepping to go to Cape Cod because that's where we're going next, because that's where Ash and his brother used to grow up. And after that, there's a scene where Dino is like weirdly possessive. And do you really think it's all sexual and Dino's like, he's mine? Or do you think that Ash somehow has the key to Banana Fish and just doesn't know it? And that's why he's so possessive.
Oh, that's a good idea. I mean, that's possible. I assumed it was like a weird sexual thing,
it could,
ownership type
but
thing.
It feels like it could also be like something else in there as well, you know?
I don't know. I feel like Dino is just, he's just possessive of him. Like he wants to show him that, I'm the boss here. I've always been the boss. He's just, he's like the kingpin. He's just showing his true personality.
And like
really is what
the way he refers to him as like the lynx, like often it's like, it's basically like he's his pet. He's like his prize pet or something.
Yeah. There is that. I just feel like it could easily be that there's something else going on there. Well, I guess we'll see.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But yeah.
So I got one more thing before we move on.
Mm-hmm.
But
What's up?
This show, it likes to do its credits over the while the show's still going on.
Yeah.
So damn it, Amazon. Dude,
you're
trying to watch this and you got like 30 seconds left and it goes to the next episode.
You have to like back it up and like make it not like autoplay.
Or when it pops up with the thing, you have to hit hide. But it's like it feels like it's 3 seconds you got to do it. So you got to be on top of it.
The preview goes like much faster than it used to. Like the little circle that like closes. Like I feel like it's a mistake or something.
You know what?
On this show, but maybe it's not.
I'm pissed off with Amazon in general. They started playing ads every time you click on something on Amazon like video, and that pisses me off so bad. I pay them $100 a year. Fuck them. I shouldn't have to look at these ads.
It's 120 now.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. I know.
Yeah, no. It's
Yep.
bullshit. And if they keep it up, eventually I'm going to get tired of it. And I'm going to be out. And then they can go shove their fucking $120 somewhere the sun doesn't shine.
But that sweet, sweet 2-day delivery.
I don't even give a shit anymore. Amazon has pissed me off too many times this year. I'll tell you.
Oh, okay.
All right, anyway.
All right, so
next episode.
Episode 6 is our journey to Cape Cod, also known as My Lost City. So Ash and the gang drive to his home in Cape Cod, Massachusetts to visit his father, Jim. Ash's father is a real son of a bitch who calls his son a whore and assumes that all of his friends are just man whores who Ash has seduced.
And that's not even the worst thing he's told him.
No, not even close. We'll get to that. So Max is there and he hears this. He tries to stand up for Ash, but Ash just says give it a rest. This is just who my dad is. Forget about it. So we learned that Griffin and Ash were born to different mothers. And Ash says that his mother drove Griffin's mother out. But then she also left when Ash was born and for another guy. And so Jim was alone, and then he found a girl named Jennifer, and they live at this nearby diner close to where Ash grew up, the house where Ash grew up.
So it's kind of fucked up that you're hey kids, I know that I'm the one raising you and your parents are all gone except me, but you're gonna live in another house because fuck y'all.
Yeah. So Ash says Griffin and I basically grew up alone in this house. And I was like, wow, okay.
I think it's kind of a part of Jim's the father's name, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's part of him also being disgusted with what situation his son's in, and he doesn't know how to deal with it, and he's just dealing with it in a really shitty way.
That was he made that decision before he Ash got fucked up when he was a kid, though. He made the decision to have him live in that house before that, though. So Jim's just a fucking asshole in general.
Well, it wasn't he made the decision for him to live there. Jim left it, and he went and lived in the diner with sweet Jennifer. Jennifer.
Sweet Jessica.
Sweet Jennifer.
She but
Jennifer,
she's
Jennifer,
she has that beaten woman syndrome or something. Every time someone moves, she cringes a little bit.
Oh god.
She does.
I guess.
So the gang look around the house and they find some photos of Griffin's former squad, which include pictures of the man who shot him, whose name was Abraham Dawson. And he lives at this address in Los Angeles. And it's the same address that Stephen Thompson gave Ash. That's the guy who died in the alley in front of him in the first episode. So this is all kind of coming together a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so their next lead is Los Angeles. And Ash wants to leave right away. But the guys eventually decide to stay the night because the van needs repairing. It's a really crappy van. It needs a new battery. And the old guys are really tired and sore anyway, and they don't want to keep moving. So the next morning, Ash and Eiji have a bonding moment where Ash shows Eiji how to shoot his gun briefly. But eBay interrupts them. And when he has Ash alone, he tells him I think Eiji and you are just too different as people. And it kind of worries him. He's kind of gently trying to suggest that Ash should leave Eiji out of all this mess that he's tangled up in. But Ash tells eBay that you just baby Eiji too much, and that's why he's not even remotely able to take care of himself. And so eBay kind of goes back to Max and sulks about this, and explains that it was a picture of Eiji that gave him his first break as a photographer, which is why he's trying to repay him now with this trip to the US to clear his head after the injury and get him back on track. But Max sort of sees through this and then just tells eBay, no, it's pretty clear that you just wish you could be Eiji, or be like him at least, some sort of Amadeus and Salieri syndrome. And I was like, oh, hello, Steins Gate Zero. How we've missed you. We're back. Fucking Amadeus. So anyway, that was kind of weird. I didn't expect that conversation to go that way, where eBay is envious of Eiji. It's kind of strange to me. But anyway. Meanwhile, Jim is still being a huge dick to Ash until Max says that he served in Iraq with Griffin, which gives Jim the indication that, hey, maybe these guys aren't actually man whores like he initially thought. And also, side note, he's reading a Cape Cod newspaper that is called the Dairy Cape Cod, which I'm pretty sure is supposed to be the Daily Cape Cod. And the lead story is about a mother who locked her child in a car without opening the windows on a hot day and couldn't get the car door open until the police came to help out. Also, apparently the Dairy Cape Cod needs a better editor because there are like a ton of typos. Also, I'm sorry that I paused to read this. Anyway. Jim then like recounts this like pretty awful story of how Ash was on a baseball team when he was 7 years old, and he was coached by this veteran who served in Afghanistan. One day, Ash came home with clear signs of abuse, sexual abuse, and when they went to the cops to report it, the cops didn't believe them. They didn't believe that the coach could have done this because he's so beloved by the town. And further than that, they even suspected Ash of seducing the coach as a fucking 7-year-old.
Yeah.
So this whole scene...
Yeah, that should have just...
yeah.
Warning bells everywhere. Come on.
Jesus Christ. It kind of honestly rings true to stuff that's going on with the Catholic Church right now.
I mean, anytime, nobody wants
Yeah,
to like
yeah.
look this shit in the face. Everyone doesn't want to think about it. They just want to like shove it in some corner and pretend it doesn't happen. You know.
Yeah, that couldn't happen to us. That couldn't be happening here. No, it is happening. So Jim's advice to his 7-year-old son.
Oh yeah,
is
no.
just next time.
This is some fucked up shit.
Just let the man do whatever you want with you in the short term.
What I was referring to when he's told him some way worse
Yeah,
shit.
no, but make him pay for it. So like, I mean, I can't stop it from
make him
happening.
eventually pay up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but at least get something
this
out
leads
of it.
to Ash.
Yeah.
Yeah, it leads Ash like to take his father up on this advice. He takes his father's gun at the age of 8 and shoots the coach on one of the occasions when he's trying to abuse him again. First of all, why the fuck was Ash still like on the baseball team? Or like, why didn't his father tell him like never have contact with that coach ever again? Like, why didn't they move? Why didn't Jim take any of this into his own hands or try to do something about it? Like, what the fuck? Why is he leaving his 7-year-old to like try to defend himself? It makes no sense.
Well, but a
It
lot
is
of
so
parents do
ridiculous.
this shit. Like a lot of parents, their kids will come to them and say, "I've been abused," and they'll just completely ignore it or do very little and then just like let it keep happening. That's not uncommon. That's actually pretty common.
I also think Jim was afraid of being ostracized by the community who was still like supporting that guy.
Yeah.
I think that was part of it too.
But honestly, if you've listened to like, or if you've heard a lot of people's stories of abuse, like that sort of shit does happen. Like no one wants to acknowledge that this shit goes on. Like, it's easier for people just to pretend that like you didn't say anything, you know?
Yeah. And then so after that, it gets even more ridiculous, right? Because, once the guy's dead, the cops then and only then finally like investigate his house. Like they didn't bother to investigate on the initial allegations whatsoever. They were just like, oh, that couldn't have happened. So they investigate the fucking house and they find children's bones like piled up in the basement. This guy was named like Carter Wilson, the abuser. He became known as the Bluebeard of Cape Cod, which is a really stupid name. And like even after Ash was proven innocent in court, people around the town apparently kept talking, and like Jim tried to send Ash to like his little sisters to stay. Like finally, then he tried to send him away, but as like in doing so, like Ash ran away, and like. Yeah, if you remember, because of all this, like Jim still thinks Ash is a seducer who attracts man whores. And like the show gives no indication that Jim knows anything about like who Ash became in the city. So we're left to believe that he really just believes this based on like what happened to his son as like a 7 and 8-year-old, which makes Jim just like such an awful person. Like it's hard to fathom. I don't know. It's so dark. Like, ugh.
Oh, you just didn't think the show was dark until now?
Well, like it has been very dark. You're right.
Yeah,
but like they just keep piling it on with Ash's backstory. It's like, how grimdark can this get? So that night, some of Dino's guys show up looking for Ash. They take Jim and Jennifer hostage at gunpoint, and so. I
want to talk about a scene that happened before this. It was kind of a throwaway scene, but Ash is outside shooting a gun and fucking wasting full bottles of whiskey.
Yeah.
Like he's like 50 feet. He's like 50. This is the part that really got me. He's like 50 feet from the house. You know what? I'll be really generous and give him 100 feet. He's also using either a Ruger or a Magnum, and these things are fucking hand cannons. They're loud as shit. And it wakes Eiji up and nobody else. I'm like, you kidding me? Everybody would have woke up shitting themselves at that distance. They're in the country. There wasn't even a tree between them to even absorb half this sound. This is just like me being like, all right, the Japanese clearly don't know about guns because it's completely outlawed for their country and whatnot. But this guy has absolutely no idea how loud a gun can be.
Well, but they make that comment later in this episode of like, oh, well, this is America, not Japan. And like, what are you going to say if someone comes and is about to shoot you? Like, we don't need guns or whatever. Like, it's a lot of like pro-gun sentiment, but also kind of like this idea that Japan has that like America is like the Wild West or something. And I almost wondered to myself as I was watching that, like, does Japan really think that the U.S. is like that? Because like the U.S. isn't that much like the Wild West. Like, there's not people going around pointing guns at each other like everywhere you go. Like,
I mean, it's not quite that bad, but like compared with Japan, it probably seems that way.
Well, but like you don't go to the
Probably.
grocery store and like have a shootout and then go home, like, and it's just normal. Like, that's kind of the way they were kind of acting like it was, and I was like, it's not really that way.
Yeah, they're acting like it's a little bit more over the top than it is, but it is pretty bad in these days.
I mean, yeah, there are bad things that happen. I'm just saying, like.
Oh, yeah. Jim and Jennifer are being held at gunpoint, right? And so Ash gives up his gun and comes in with his hands up, which gets them to release Jennifer. And like she quickly runs and hides behind Ash. And then Max has this brilliant idea to distract the two mobsters by like flooding the store with the headlights of their van and just like, you know, blinding them and yelling at them like they're the cops that have shown up. And so like Ash takes this opportunity to like kick the gun out of like the closest mobster's hands. But like Jim doesn't move a muscle, like he's being held by the other mobster. And so the other mobster just like raises his gun and like goes to shoot at Ash, but he misses and hits Jennifer twice in the chest, killing her.
No!
And I was like, really? What a shitty life. Like, what a shitty way to go. And then Jim tries to grab the gun and fails, like, and gets shot as well once, but is still alive. And I was like, okay, I guess Jim couldn't have really done much anyway, because, like, he's a weakling, apparently. So Ash, like, dives for the gun after Jim is shot and finally shoots the first guy. And then, like, another guy was coming up behind Ash, but, like, shorter, slits his throat. And then it's, like, over. And then, so, like, this nearby neighbor named Howard shows up because of the gunshots. And Jim decides to do what he can to protect Ash, saying, like, the mobsters were just burglars, and taking the gun from Ash and wiping his fingerprints off of it, and having him place the knife in Jennifer's hand as well, to just basically pretend like it was all, like, encapsulated between these couple people and that there was no other person there. Ash had nothing to do with it. Jim finally gives Ash his blessing once he realizes, like, one of these mobsters killed Griffin as well, and basically sends him on his way. And they all hop in the van before the cops arrive and get away. And Ash is like tearing up and yelling, damn it, because like kind of finally reconciled with his asshole father, but like in the worst way possible, because like he brought back like death and destruction to him as well.
It only took a shootout to have them get along.
Yeah, you know, American family relations. It's what happens at Thanksgiving here. So just so you know, Japan. So finally,
there's a massacre over who gets the last leg of turkey. And that's how we all bond.
Oh, the Great Wishbone Massacre. Yes. I don't want to talk about the gravy incident. So anyway, Dino meets with Mr. Lee, that like banker guy who's been backing Ash. And he explains that, yeah, banana fish, he believes at least, is a drug for assassinations. And therefore it doesn't threaten Mr. Lee's like bank business in any way. And so he also offers part of like his own like European heroin operation to Mr. Lee if they're able to track down Ash in Los Angeles. And so Lee's like, okay, this sounds like a pretty good deal. So he has this guy named Yut Lung or something, who also known as Dragon Moon, who's like his guy in Los Angeles, who's like, all right, I'll have him take care of Ash and we can work together. So that's where they leave off. Yep. But man, like fucking Jim. What a douche.
It's like, well, even though I was a shithead to you your entire life, I died and did something halfway decent. So I guess we're supposed to not talk shit about him, but no, I'm totally going to talk shit about him. He's like the fucking worst.
And then there's just Jennifer, who is just like beyond a complete innocent bystander.
Right, yeah.
You're just like, why the
She's
fuck
a fucking wimp.
her?
I got tired of her. She has no backbone. She cringes every time someone moves. And all she would do when Jim did shit.
Wonderful woman.
All that she would do when Jim did shit would be like, no, stop it, Jim. Don't say that. Don't completely talk shit to your son about how he's a whore. Oh, you shouldn't do that, Jim. Fucking bitch.
She does go out later and she like kind of talks to Ash, like,
now she's nice to him, but she won't stand up to Jim and yell at him and be like, don't be an asshole, but she'll be nice like behind his back when he's not around.
I guess she feels like it's not her place since
it's not
family,
her place.
So. I don't know.
I get what you're saying, Kat. Like you're making some good points. She is a little weak-willed for sure.
I know a show that has no weak-willed girls in it.
Oh,
Nothing
really?
Weak.
Okay.
Everything will.
Harukana Receive.
All right.
Until you break.
What are you talking about?
The title of the episode.
Oh, okay. To me, that was just like some random phrase. I was like, what the fuck is he referencing?
Nice.
So the tournament has started and Haruka and Kanata are up against IMI in their first match, which is kind of funny leading up to it. Mm-hmm. They start off by targeting Mai since she seems to be the weak point on their team, mostly to do with she is short. Haruka's team scores 2 points early using the techniques that they acquired the last couple episodes. So that was like the pokey and then like one of her like blocks or something like that. But the other two are not to be deterred and they completely give up on blocking Kanata's pokies just so they can counter them because it's like long and slow and lobs it real high. So as long as they're not up against the net, they can get to it really easily. Why Kanata just doesn't spike when nobody tries to block her, I don't know. I thought that was weird.
Exactly. Totally agree. But like that was weird in the beginning and then we figured out later why she was doing it. But like it was super weird to me as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was like, you could change up. It's a free point almost.
Yeah, just like switch up your shots. Like nobody's declared that you have to use one type of shot the whole match. Yeah.
It did get a little repetitive because they just kept doing the same thing like over and over.
Yeah. So Haruka's actually been having a problem with timings on her blocks and it's just a little bit off. And then the other team also uses that to get spikes past her here and there. This kind of keeps both teams even at this point, and I noticed, I know Bcom noticed it, and so did I, but there was this really great Spanish guitar that starts playing.
It was pretty good, I will admit.
It was really good.
Yeah,
it's just shots of the girls diving for the balls and making various plays. It was just like really well done. Like I want to go back and just watch that little 2-minute clip because it's great.
I'm just really enjoying the music in this show in all the hype moments. It's super well done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I decides to step her game up and remembers when she first recruited Mai to play indoor volleyball with her, which is also something else. Like they're used to indoor volleyball, so like the wind's messing with them and stuff like that. And it just little things here and there is like working in their disadvantage. Mai doesn't want to play because it's a sport with tall people and she thinks she doesn't have a chance. And I convinces her by telling her it's a sport where you defeat tall people. And I was like, okay, that's not bad.
I felt very attacked.
Shut up,
as a tall person. Leo, I can see why you were very happy about this.
It becomes like they're coming for me. Shit.
Over short.
Say no.
So I thought this was a little silly though, and I got another spiel later on about it. But they have like a tournament. They're still in the past year, and I guess they went out like early in the rounds, and one of the other players on their team says, "Well, what could they do?" The other team was full of really tall people, and this like kind of crushes Mai, and I feels like she had lied to her somehow.
Yeah,
and I just like okay, but this like revitalizes Ai, and as they go into the next rally, they lost the first one, and the anime I didn't think I'd use this term yet, but it's the rally is the start of like. Each time somebody goes up and serves. So like they rally until somebody scores a point and then the next one's a rally. In which I didn't think they did, but they do bring it up in the next episode. Anyway, she goes into the rally with a little more gusto, but they end up losing the first set anyways. That doesn't stop them from keeping the lead in the second set, and they end the episode in the middle of it. And like, I think at some point they had like a 17-9 lead. It was pretty big.
Yeah.
And then just on a side note, Claire and Emily destroyed their opponents in their round and won it mostly effortlessly. There's also this individual on the sidelines closely watching Claire and Emily. So there's that going on.
I think her name is Akari. I'm not positive, but yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's in the it's on my anime list at least.
Oh, I just noticed, I think it was mostly the beginning of this episode before the match started, that it was kind of moe. Like, there was a lot of stuff between I and Mai that was, like, really cutesy. And I was like, if the rest of the show had been a 7 on the moe meter, I felt like this episode was kind of a 9 until the match started. And then it got pretty serious. And I was like, you got to pump those moe numbers up, boy. Those are rookie numbers.
No, I was thrilled that they made it more sporty. I was like, thank God.
Oh, yeah.
Thank
it was
God. Awesome. Something else.
Yeah, this show has convinced me at this point that it's going to take the volleyball very seriously. And it did that early on already, but right now it just solidifies that. And I think it's great that it's doing that.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I'm not like complaining or anything. I think it's all fun. I think they're hitting like a really good balance between like fan service and like a serious sports show at the moment. So yeah, it's good.
So moving on to episode 6, I Won't Break.
I won't break.
So we just see a nice moe voice there. So they go right back into the game, and you can see Mai starting to get tired. There's just a bunch of visual cues, like her slipping in the sand. She's like making wild volleys, and she's just running out of energy. She just get high enough to make a spike over the net.
Yeah.
So this is when I Mai have a big lead, but Mai's fatiguing is starting to wear, and they end up tying the game at 19. Like I said, they came back from like 17-9 at 19-19.
And like Claire and Emily had been watching, and it was clear that they noticed what Kanata's strategy had been, and it was to keep using pokies over and over and over again because it would tire Mai out. She would have to keep running and diving to get to them.
Right.
So
correct.
Yeah, they just wore her down. Yeah.
Eventually, Kanata admits this, and then she actually gets a little tricky, and she uses the wind to her advantage, and she like kind of serves it out of bounds, but because of the wind, she knew it would curve back in. But then who's not that used to it, didn't catch us until it was too late. So they got an easy point there. So it's 20-19 to 1 point win. Okay, then this is when Haruka finally manages to get a block after realizing it's not just about blocking the ball, it's about trying to return it.
Yeah.
She manages to block the ball, and she kind of sends it downward and back over the net, and it scores the last point for them to win the set and the round.
Yeah, she basically just dumps it. Yeah, I think it was what it's called. And yeah, that was pretty badass, I have to say. But it's also funny that it took her like an entire freaking match to figure out I could do this.
2 matches.
Well,
this was the
kind
second
of the
match.
airhead. She's kind of the airhead of the two of them. Like, you got to give her some break.
The whole first match, she was like just getting her timing down, and then like the second match, she was like trying to figure out how to actually block correctly.
She's like an adorable,
it was cool that it culminated
like
in
Labrador Retriever, very friendly, but sometimes a little dumb. But like, you forgive her. It's cute.
And I would say her whole little quest was like a little mini version of Tsukishima's arc in Haikyuu, who's like the middle blocker with the goggles and the blonde hair, who especially in season 3 is trying to figure out a way to block like the opponent's like best spiker, and has a really great arc with that. And this was like a little mini version of that for Haruka to go through. So yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, so I get a cry scene after the match, and it's Mai being upset with the outcome, and like I apologizes because she felt like she lied to her about the sport being where you defeat tall people. But Mai isn't having any of this, and like the two end up make up. But this is where like when people get crazy emotional like this, like all the time, like this is the second match that we've seen her in, and she cried at the end also. And I just feel like, I don't know, you may need to pick a different hobby. I don't think it's very healthy to emotionally stress yourself out like this all the time.
You get a lot of emotion in like sports. Like, I mean, I don't know about crying, but you are going to be emotional. I will admit that crying is a bit much, but you're going to have feelings.
Yeah. I grew up. I played a ton of sports, and like but like they've shown her every match they've shown her with. She cries at the end. So I'm like, I don't know if this is for you. And I'm kind of feel sorry for you.
Well, but you know why they're crying. They're crying because boys love to see girls cry. especially Moe girls.
I don't.
Oh, you know that that's
Obviously,
some
me.
fetishy shit, though. Come on.
Oh yeah, probably.
Oh yeah, that is the reason that those girls are crying. It's like if you watch Love Live, they're crying constantly. Every 5 seconds, there's a tear hanging from the corner of their eye.
So Emily and Claire like end up winning the whole thing, and Haruka and Kanata lost their second round, but are like still super stoked to have like their first round and actually make it official. They're an official team now, and they got like a little plaque for it or whatever. And there's also something interesting that happened. Since Emily and Claire have won the prelims 2 years in a row, basically so they can allow somebody else from this town to participate in nationals, it seems they get 2 spots this year. And then, of course, they all are like, oh, we're all going to go together. Yay. And then there's, at the end, Claire makes like some kind of call to, I'm assuming, her mother for a favor. And I'm hearing good things about Mom. She's sounding very sexy.
I am also hearing good things about the mom. We saw her briefly, and I was like, damn.
Yeah, so after credits, like Stalker Girl confronts Kanata, and then just the episode ends. But you guys want to add anything?
As cheesy and moe as the my crying scene was after the match, it looked really nice, and it was like executed well enough that I almost shed a tear, like almost, but not quite.
So you're almost shedding a tear, and I'm sitting here going, we need to find you something else to do.
I don't care about them at all.
No, see, Bcom was eating this up because he is one of these moe sluts who absolutely fucking loves this shit. He's like, cry for me, baby.
No, it wasn't about the moe.
Oh, come on. Come on.
It was about how you have to have complete trust in your teammates in a partner sport, especially. And like, yeah. Also, by the way, the show kind of feels like it's headed for a time skip, maybe at some point, because they talk about how the prelims for nationals are coming next summer. So that's a long time from now. But like that, then that other girl wanders into the scene in the after credits scene. So it's like, okay, so maybe there'll be a little bit more now, but then eventually a time skip, or
so
I don't
you
know.
think a time skip, or do you think they'll do like a training arc and then go to the finals?
Something like that would make sense. Yeah. But yeah, the next summer seems like a long time to wait. So we'll have to see. I'm not sure.
I would like to see him do some like little matches again, like maybe bring Narumi and Ayasa back and just do like a little match for fun, see how that goes.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be cool.
All right. Speaking of matches for fun, Saturdays we got Revue Starlight. And episode 5 asks the question: is shine even possible? So Karen and Hikari are up before like everyone else. Remember, they have like the newfound motivation after they had their like big day running around Tokyo and everything. So everybody like sort of stumbles in on them in the studio like before everybody else, and like when Tendo walks in, like Karen kind of faces her down and says like, I will catch up to you. And like Karen has found this like new work ethic, and she's really surprising everybody else because like they equate it to like candy falling from the sky in terms of how likely it was ever going to happen that Karen would work like this. Meanwhile, Mahiru is like clearly being affected by being left out of the loop on whatever happened between her and Hikari to spur this on. But so yeah, it's going to be a Mahiru-centric episode. She gets a care package from her grandmother in Hokkaido. It's filled with like vegetables and other foods from home. But there's also a DVD in there of this news report when like her local town news did a report on her when she got chosen to be at this prestigious music academy, Seisho. And so it details how like she began singing at age 4, and she was like baton twirling by age 6, and won like tons of local awards. And like the news reporter asks Mahiru what kind of star she wants to be when she attends the academy, and it kind of cuts off because like clearly Mahiru hasn't thought much about stardom. So it's made even clearer in practice that day because Karen and Hikari are in better sync than ever before. And Mahiru just like stands in the back and feels as dull as a rock compared to these two. Like she feels like she couldn't shine at all as bright as these people. And like some of the other stage crew are speaking with Banana about possibly pushing for Karen and Hikari to play Flora and Claire, the 2 leads of Starlight, because they're starting to look so good. But of course, like Banana's like, no, we have Maya and Claudine. Like, why would we change that? But yeah, there's a quick scene where Mahiru awakens and again sees that Karen and Hikari have already like woken up and gone off to practice. She like goes over to Karen's bed, picks up her pillow, and like kind of hugs it. She just misses her so badly. And like embarrassingly at that moment, Hikari just like returns and like she's like, I forgot something. She picks it up and then like like Mahiru is just like frozen in horror, and then she like after like 10 seconds like throws the pillow at the door like frustrated. And this happens like 2 more times. Like it keeps happening. Like they're at practice and like Mahiru gives like Karen a towel to like wipe off like her sweaty face.
Yeah.
And then she like looks at like the glinting like sweat on the towel longingly, and then you just see Hikari come up behind her and like sip loudly from her water bottle. And then yeah, the last one is the locker room. Like Mahiru's kind of like waiting for Karen there, and Karen comes back and takes like a brief swig of water from her water bottle, and she's like, okay, back to practice, because she's just like obsessed with practicing now. And so when she leaves, Mahiru goes over to the water bottle and like lifts it up to her lips for like an indirect kiss. And then Hikari is like right behind her, opening her locker again. And then finally Mahiru just like confronts Hikari and says like, you need to give me Karen back. You like stole her from me. And Hikari's
clearly
just like,
Mahiru is just thirsty. That's all.
Mahiru is thirsty, but also has all of her self-worth kind of wrapped up in being kind to Karen and like supporting Karen, and doesn't know how to move on from that.
It's similar to the Free situation with
yeah, it totally is. I was actually thinking about that as we were going through, because like she's totally the Hiyori to like Karen's Ikuya in this situation.
Exactly.
So yeah, they get summoned to the draft audition, right? And Mahiru's like intense jealousy has like smothered her youthful joy, according to the draft. And like, so the review of jealousy begins, and it's like this weird, like cutesy cardboard cutout like theme, or like themed around like a baseball game, as Mahiru is fighting Karen. And she's basically talking, and like Karen is realizing how much Mahiru is trying to support her and how much like she's kind of obsessed with her. And like Karen just like keeps like twirling her baton and like swinging it like a baseball bat, like blowing Karen up into the air, and like she like tumbles towards home plate, and then she like falls through the ground past like some fossils and stuff, and then like just like resets and like repeats, and she keeps like falling into the ground. It's like a strike every time, and then it's like an out every time. What eventually happens and turns things around is that Karen tells Mahiru about her promise with Hikari from when she was younger to win Starlight together, and also reminds Mahiru that, like, you know, you truly do shine, though. Like, I love your pleasant singing voice. I love the way you dance, and I love your kindness especially. And so with this, Karen is able to turn the tables on Mahiru, sending her off with like a home run swing of her own and winning the duel. And so afterwards, the girls are all eating some of Mahiru's homegrown potatoes that Banana cooked up. And they also found that DVD her grandmother sent. She's like, no, don't turn it on. And then like Mahiru listens to it, and she sees that, like she said in that interview, like the kind of star she wanted to be was one who made those important to her, like happy. And so Karen and Hikari both tell her that she's truly shining in this video, and like among all of the other stars at the Academy, she had like lost her confidence, but she realizes that she's truly special, just in a different way, and she doesn't need to rely on anybody else. So yeah. I don't know. I like this episode a lot because it like closed out like Mahiru's arc, which was starting to get kind of annoying, of like her just like being overly dependent on like what Karen thinks of her, and she realizes like she can be independent. She doesn't need that, and it definitely plays into the next episode because it's like the same type of relationship again.
Yep.
So episode 6, stage left for 2, like. So this is a Kaoruko and a Futaba centric episode, starting with like a flashback of the two of them as kids. They're like childhood friends, and like Kaoruko is like talking about how she wants to run away from things. Like she's tired of practicing every day and has like no choice and but like to stay though, because like Futaba's like, fine, run away, and like she hops back on Futaba's bike and it's like, no, never mind, I won't do that. But like they kind of grew up with this weird dynamic where Futaba would always like cater to her and like take care of her, just because Futaba admired how brightly Kaoruko kind of like naturally shined as like a star. Even as a little girl, she was like this. So like the auditions are starting back in present time, and Kaoruko does not make it through the first round. She does not get a lead part. And she goes to complain to the scriptwriters, telling them, like, I've never in my life missed a lead part in production. And they just bluntly tell her that Starlight is different and she's not good enough for a lead part here. And her acting and singing have been hollow and, like, lifeless. So,
ouch.
Yeah, it's pretty blunt. It becomes clear that Kaoruko has been really overly reliant on Futaba and treating her basically like a servant. Like Futaba wakes her up, she like drives her to school on the motorcycle, she like massages her feet, like all these things. But now it's clear like Futaba's like has no interest in doing that anymore. Like she's been practicing alone with Claudine and she's getting better at like tap dance, she's getting better at all sorts of things, and she's leaving Kaoruko behind in the dust. So Kaoruko confronts Futaba about this, and Futaba just straight up says, like, I earned my part. I'm not going to give it up to you like you want. And, like, angrily, Futaba decides to stay in Claudine's room from now on. And she, like, doesn't help Kaoruko in any of the ways she used to, and she doesn't pamper her. And, like, Kaoruko, like, really feels that, even if it's only from, like, her sore feet from finally having to walk to school instead of being given rides every day. So eventually Kaoruko feels like she can't do this on her own, and she's like losing in like draft audition after audition. Like she's so far behind everybody else at the school that she decides like, okay, the only thing I can do is just go home to like retain my dignity. And so she buys a ticket for the bullet train, and no one really stops her except for Karen, who is so funny. Like she like dives around her feet and like starts like grabbing her like by one foot and is like, don't leave. She's like crying. Everybody else is like standing up and like acting normally. Karen's just like blubbering. It's hilarious. But yeah, otherwise like Claudine and Tendo realize like, she's either doing this for attention or they just can't bear to watch like somebody like lie through their teeth like this, because they don't play along with like Kaoruko's little story that she's gonna leave. And so as she arrives at the train, Kaoruko wonders to herself like if Futaba was like one of those people who would be one who would follow her, like, and that she had to like live up to, because as she was leaving, Maya was like, I understand why you're going, like you must be one of those people who feel like you can't let down the people who are following you at home. Or something like that. It was like a little spark of advice that Maya just like gave her before she left. And like obviously like that's the problem. Futaba was following her, but like Futaba realized Kaoruko had become complacent and had to find somebody else to follow. But even so, like Kaoruko is just about to start crying because she was hoping that Futaba would come running after her, and just as she thinks that Futaba's not going to come, Futaba like shows up like panting as she like ran to get there, and like they both start like yelling at each other and like letting it out. But then they obviously both care very deeply about each other, and that's when the draft audition like kicks off with the review of Promise, and they both like fight. Kaoruko kind of tricks Futaba into thinking that like she's gonna let her win, or that like she's gonna act nice, and she actually like tries to trick her and like cut one of her button off like as Futaba's like lunging. But then she actually like fully realizes like the advice that she got, which is that she needs to like be the best that she can be in order for somebody like Futaba to even want to follow her. And so she pulls out her naginata and does some like crazy shit, like this red curtain falls away and reveals this like cherry blossom scene, and it's just like a metaphor for her blossoming as a flower into like something truly special. And she defeats Futaba and like, but like also like grabs her hand and like holds it and stuff. And so yeah, that's basically how it ends. Like from then on, Kaoruko decides to be like less of a burden on Futaba from like for the future. Like you see her like wake up with like the motorcycle helmet already on, like before Futaba has even gotten out of bed. Like she's ready to go.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's nice. It's like a nice ending, and it's just like clearly complements the last episode of like not relying on the other person, having like an equal partnership with like the people you want to go forward with. So yeah,
these episodes are like therapy. They're like couples therapy. Actually,
it kind of is. Yeah, it's totally true.
Wouldn't that be like a good kind of couples therapy? Like to physically like fight, like in a gentle
fight each
way
other with like swords.
Yeah,
and
like I mean, someone would have to supervise, but
you would like fake fight like through theater.
Yeah,
with a draft. You know, the draft is very important.
Yes, exactly.
I don't know. I like these individual episodes. I don't think they necessarily like moved the plot forward so much, like the overall plot, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But we did learn more about these characters. We did get them like over some of their humps, like and obstacles. So yeah, now we can just move forward, and we have all these strong power couples developing in the show. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to see them sort of battle against each other now.
Yeah,
so,
I would agree with that.
Yeah. That was exhausting. Let's take a break.
Yeah.
All right. We'll be right back.
Mm-hmm.
And here's another tasty morsel from the Trash Pandas Watch Anime podcast.
Some fan service.
Yeah. I mean, it worked pretty well in Dragon Ball. Do you remember those scenes with Bulma?
Bulma was running around in a bunny outfit for the longest time.
I know. Akira Toriyama.
We can get the Dragon Balls, and then we can make our wish. Bulma's panties.
Did Oolong wish for Bulma's panties, or did you just wish for a pair of panties?
I think it was just a pair of panties. I'm sure it's different in the Japanese than it is in the English dub. But yeah, he just wished for panties. They're probably used.
As always, you can find us on Facebook and on Twitter at Trash Panda Anime. You can find us on our website, tpwapodcast.com. You can also find us on assorted sites like SoundCloud, Stitcher, and iTunes.
Warning, the following clip may contain descriptions of explicit behavior conducted by Bishi boys.
Now, that's not to say he didn't get physical. Quite the opposite, in fact. Our boy Kent was researching all the ways to please a woman.
Pulled his lever.
And he put some of that learning into effect, if you know what I mean. Let me give you a scene from the show that I really quite liked. My research shows that women find it pleasurable if men place their fingers here, then apply some pressure and begin to rub that area. Do you enjoy that? Is it giving you pleasure? Please respond. I need verbal... Please respond. I gotta get this out. Get it out. Please respond. I need verbal confirmation that this is something that you enjoy. Heroine Sadie tells him that it's hurting her as he's rubbing her too vigorously. Ow. Despondent Ken removes his fingers and looks at them. Perhaps I applied too much pressure. Don't worry, Kent. Head pats are difficult to master.
And that was Yata from the Reanimator Pod. If you want to hear more, you can check out our website. That's reanimatorpod.com. We release new episodes every Monday.
Don't drop that. Hey, don't drop that.
Hey. Do you like wrestling?
Whether it be in a bar, an arena, some weird place in Asia, or in a stadium?
Or the occasional penis plex?
Well, if any of these things might tickle your fancy, anywhere in between from penises to wrestling, you can come and check out our podcast.
Our podcast name is Smack It Down. We talk all things WWE, New Japan, anything else in between.
I'm Jay Silver.
I'm Corey Gold.
And we look forward to you joining us.
Happy Rusev Day.
Happy Rusev Day indeed.
So, we're coming back from break. We got Cells at Work. Episode 5, Cedar Pollen Allergies. Okay, so this episode is all about the fearsome cedar pollen. And it's like coming out of the sky, and it looks like a comet or something, like coming from the heavens. And I have to admit, I was a little disappointed that all this was going to be was about allergies, because first of all, it's not super dramatic, right? Like allergies are allergies. And partly also because allergies are complicated. And no matter how much someone has explained how allergies work to me, I've never been able to understand what's actually happening. So I was like, this is going to be hard.
What it does is it confuses the shit out of your immune system.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I get
So,
that
like,
part,
the-
but like I don't really know
Your
what
runny
like
nose
what
is
exactly.
your immune system trying to flush out something, but it's just like way overreacting to it, which is what it all is. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
but like all the mechanics of it are a little weird. But anyway, we'll get into that later. So basically, it lands like in the body, and it's like Cedar. Like it
Well,
makes these weird.
It's like
cries.
they kind of make it the eye, I think, which is kind of cool. How they did the
Yeah.
eye. It was like a big lake and everything.
yeah.
Oh
was cool.
yeah, that was
awesome.
cool too. And then what? Okay, so like then the white blood cells are like trying to get rid of it first, and he like eats some of it, and I was like, what the hell? Like don't. So I guess so they tried to explain this as like he eats it and then he gets information from eating it. Is that correct, Leo?
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
See if he kind of recognizes it, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay. So that didn't tell them that much though. Just that it's like an allergy. So the cells have this weird, you find out pretty quickly the cells have this weird legend that once pollen invades, the apocalypse is going to like basically happen soon. And it reminds me of like how every year like a weird cult leader will come forward, right? And they'll make this huge announcement about how like we're all going to die tomorrow and we better, do what he says because like Lord Cthulhu or whatever is going to come down and we're all doomed. And just like
It's just an interesting
ahead.
twist on the allergies, which is kept it very entertaining.
And just like then, like the cell is weird. Like some of them are weirdly excited for basically like the end of the world to happen. And I was just thinking to myself, like, why do you think people are always excited for the apocalypse? Because like this happens in real life too. I know I've been guilty of it. Like someone mentions the apocalypse and you get like weirdly excited about thinking about it happening. But like that shit would be terrible. Like, do you think we're all just insane? Uh-oh.
I think people want to like be tested. Like, and like the apocalypse would be like the ultimate test. Like, you think to yourself, like, would I survive? And the answer is like, probably not. but what if you did? What if you're like one of those crazy people who survives and like goes beyond, and then you like have this chance to start over everything with everybody else? I don't know. Maybe that's part of the reason. Maybe people have a death wish. I don't know.
Maybe it's a little of both. I think maybe it's a little of both. But yeah, it's weird. So like you get a little bit of that. Some of the cells are like, oh, the end of the world is nigh. And they're like all weirdly excited and saying dumb shit. And the rest of the people are like, oh fuck, what do we do? So their alarm over the prophecy causes the allergic reaction, which just means like their fear of this happening is what ended up causing the disaster. Which is funny. Which honestly is very true about a lot of things in life. Sometimes your fear is like the thing that ends up causing you the most problems. So the antibodies that are causing the histamine. Okay, so this is the part that I am the most confused about. So histamine is supposed to dilate cell walls so that
Correct.
white blood cells can attack more easily. First of all,
Allow them to pass through, right?
oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
so they can get through faster. But like, why does that cause congestion? Wouldn't it make it like easier for
It's
you
an
to breathe?
No, it's an overstimulation. It's way too much. And I
Yeah, 'cause,
believe
like, she
that's
just
where
gets-
that mucus membrane comes from. And that's how you end up with it.
And that's
So-
why you need like histamine blockers when you're
So is it like because it's watery, it makes it easier for cells to move faster, but like watery equals you not being able to breathe? Is that the idea, kind of?
I suppose so. Yeah, something like that.
Because
But
that's
and
my
like I said before,
confusion.
it's just the immune system fucking losing its shit. So it's just an overproduction of the histamines. And like a certain level is definitely good for you because it allows the white blood cells. But then there was like too much, and these are the side effects you get. Is
Okay.
how it works. Yeah.
But yeah, so basically the antibodies that they're shooting out cause the histamine reaction. And like this first the nozzle comes down from the ceiling and then it's like, oh, it's retracting. Oh, they're probably just changing the nozzle and everyone's just waiting around. And then this like big ass nozzle comes out of the sky and you're like, oh fucking Lord, here we go. Like, oh my
It's
God.
so good.
It was good.
The Great Flood.
The great flood is coming. And But yeah, so then the fat cell and the B cell start fighting over who is causing this whole disaster, when really it's like the whole system that's fucked up. And this just reminded me of like every business ever, like every office, where like someone has to be at fault for the issue, and no one just wants to look at the situation objectively and say like, let's fix the issue. It has to be someone's fault.
I 100% agree. There has to be a finger pointing at somebody every single time. It's awful and it's toxic as hell.
But yeah, also, why hasn't the body figured out how to fix this? Like, I would say the body is pretty smart. Like, it seems like it could. The allergies are old, and like everyone gets them. Why do we have to deal with this shit? It's weird.
Not everybody. I don't have allergies. So
well,
like,
some people fucking do, Leo. Good for you.
Well, you just said everybody, and I'm like, well, not everybody gets
I
allergies.
bet you
it's
have.
in my notes.
I bet you have allergies.
More evolved than you, Kat. Okay.
I got really lucky. My brother, my mom, and my dad all have allergies really bad. They all have poor eyesight. I am the complete opposite. I get sniffles occasionally. That's the worst. And my eyesight is fantastic. So like,
well,
I got
you
the
know
good
what?
genes.
If we were all in the cave era, like we would probably survive more than you, though, because even if we have allergies and have bad eyesight, we actually can eat everything that we come across, and you would be like,
I'd starve to death.
yeah, if there was an apocalypse, we'd be like, well, we can't see very well, and like our noses are sniffling, but let's eat this fucking rat on a stick because that's what we have. And Leo would be like,
keep anything down, so I'm just dying.
I can't eat rats on a stick, and then you would die in like week 2 of the apocalypse.
Now I haven't really met a meat I don't like, so I think I'd be okay there.
Maybe. But yeah, anyway, so I don't know. That was my little rant on the side. I was like, why can't we fix this? At the very end of this episode, they get steroids injected or like put in them because you can take them. And they drew it to look like a robot, which I thought was interesting. And I was like, yes, good old steroids.
Yeah. Because like its man-made medications would seem like some weird robotic technology to like, if the actual natural human cells are being like anthropomorphized in this anime, then what does a man-made medication look like? Oh, a robot, like a death Terminator robot. It's fantastic.
Yeah, the portrayal of the steroid is just like so good. And also that like it's destructive wave, because steroids can help you, but they can also really fuck you up too.
They portray it like it's almost like a nuclear bomb or something. Like it comes in and just destroys everything. And like, does it really do that? Because I love steroids because I have asthma. And so when I get sick, and I don't get sick very often, but when I get sick, I get fucking sick. Like I get pneumonia and shit. And I always end up being on steroids. So anytime I get sick, it usually ends up with me being on steroids. So I love these things.
I didn't know they use steroids for treating allergies and stuff like that. That's totally new to me.
I've never seen them prescribe them for allergies. Like I've seen them prescribe it for like bronchitis or pneumonia and stuff like that, but never for just allergies. Maybe they do that in Japan. That's all I could think of.
Yeah, could be.
Well, Japan has a way tighter hold on their medications, so.
Yeah, they make it seem like this robot just like murders every cell in sight, and it's like this huge like apocalyptic hellscape genocide. And then just like as they're like looking out over the destruction, right? Like the narrator just says like, "Please adhere to the recommended dosage." Right? Thank you for your patronage. I was like, God damn.
Well, it's a pretty accurate way of showing, steroids can be good for you if used properly, but it's going to mess you up. I just also was like watching this. I was like, dude, if I was a health teacher, I would totally be playing this in my class.
That would be
because
cool.
it's so accurate.
I was laughing because there's that anime parody website that writes parody news articles called Anime Maru, and I think they wrote they wrote an article, a parody article, saying that like Japanese colleges have. This is what it is. Japanese medical schools have started teaching cells at work as part of their like introductory seminar or something. Nice. And I was like, why isn't this true? This should be true.
It should be. This is a great way to learn.
Maybe not colleges.
I think it's a good way to get people's interest too.
I could see like a high school doing this. but maybe not.
Yeah,
at
not
college.
in a medical school for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're doing a little bit more deeper dives.
Yeah,
I'm
hopefully.
sure some med students are getting a good kick out of this, though.
Okay, let me butcher the title of this episode 6 here.
Ooh.
Erythroblasts and myelocytes.
I think that's pretty damn good, actually. No butchery there.
Yep. So our red blood cell is lost like usual and comes across the red bone marrow that is set up like a school. Awesome. Here, hematopoietic stem cells are created, and they can turn into mostly any other cell. So this is like the very beginning of a cell's life. And true to life, the teachers here are the macrophages, who in actuality do kind of look after them before they fully mature. The red blood cells she starts remembering her days here, and one day they have like a maze to complete, like to transport their supplies and stuff. And of course, she gets lost. It just totally fucks this. I mean, just true to her today.
This is just like the Moe episode. Like, this should be Bcom's favorite episode of the entire show. You sound like you're getting turned on over there, which is creepy considering this is like little kids. You're like,
that is not what me getting turned on sounds like. That is what me enjoying myself sounds like. Yeah, like I love this whole like metaphor of like the undifferentiated cells like being like little kids and like going to school to like graduate. Oh, it's so good.
So this next part, it slayed me. So macrophage has a white blood cell participate in being the bacteria as the students practice running from him. The thing is, it immediately grabs your attention because this is the only white blood cell that doesn't have murderous rampage in their eyes. So you're just like, what is going on? And the teacher's like, let's start the exercise. And then he's like, oh, can I start now? And she's like, yeah. And he's got this like sock puppet that's like a bacteria. And that's when he just goes full on murderous rampage. And the children are like running around like crazy. Fucking tears are flying from them. It was fantastic. I was laughing my ass off. Of course, red blood cell somehow gets separated, and she just like ends up in a different part of the school. And she comes across an actual real bacteria who she thinks it's sensei for a minute, but then she kind of realizes it's not. And then like he's like chasing her around, and like he's talking about how he likes to torture her, but it's actually pretty comical still.
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, guess who shows up? An immature white blood cell. He looks familiar. And he like tries to save her, but his knife's like a rubber knife, and he can't do anything. But he like stands his ground heroically, and then the actual white blood cell shows up and kills the bacteria. And then she comes out of her daydream and actually runs into the white blood cell again. And like this show is like 120% shipping these two.
I was laughing because I was like, this like 5 minutes of romance between little red blood cell and little white blood cell was the best romance anime that's aired this year so far.
Don't
and
say
I
that.
wish I was joking. I wish I was joking, but I was thinking back at all the romance anime this year, and I was like, I don't know. It might be.
Oh, man. But I'm like, are they really doing this trope where like they met when they were kids and all this bullshit? It's like, well, now they're required to get married because they met when they're kids. And we all know what that means when they're fucking anime. Ugh.
Yep.
I don't know. It was a little too stereotypical for me. I was like, boo! Like, no!
So, in the second part, my evening of viewing anime starts getting interesting at this point. Because later on, I was almost convinced I might be having a stroke.
Okay.
So this is where it starts. You'll understand why in a minute. So, they go and start using, I believe, the exact same animation from an earlier episode between Killer T Cell and the NK cell. The three eventually drag the one cell off so he can show them where there is more infected, and this is where it changed. But like the earlier, it was line for line, it was scene for scene. I was just like, they're seriously reusing stuff. I'm like, all right, whatever. But then the NK cell manages to get the regular cell alone, and she knows he isn't a regular cell, just one in disguise. And I'm assuming it's cancer if you glance at episode titles.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
for
this
sure.
repeatability of a scene I was just like, all right, it's doing it. Well, this happens again when we get to the next show, and I watched them back to back, and I was like, there's no way this is a coincidence. I'm losing my fucking mind. So
for little Leo.
I did really like that part in the last section there because like NK cells like, leave this to me, I'll go take care of this problem. And then like killer T cell like goes and like grabs a bucket from one of the platelets, fills it up with water.
Already.
I don't remember this.
I saw this in your notes, and I'm like, we've already done this.
I don't remember this.
She backs him in the nose with her hand. He goes and talks to the platelets, grabs her bucket, dumps it over her head, and then they fight again. It was the one with the zombie regular cells.
I don't remember the bucket dump. I remember them fighting, and I remember like some of the punches and shit probably being repeated.
It played out scene for scene. I'm almost sure of it.
You have a better memory than me, so I will definitely trust you on this, because I'm sure I could have like easily overlooked this. Yeah.
When I get a moment, I might look around and see if I can get a comparison somewhere. But
that's interesting.
Yeah, I swear to you.
I will say I also just really like the cute touch that like when they graduate from the little like academy or whatever.
Oh, they pull off their little
pull the cute fuzzy ball off their head.
Oh my god!
Or off of their hat.
This is so ridiculous. It was cute, but then I was also like, oh, this is a little weird. Like, I don't know.
Oh, and I also just want to salute Kanahana's voice acting the whole episode as Red Blood Cell, like both as like the little girl version and as like the older version, like, and just like all the different range of voice acting that she was doing throughout the episode was hilarious and so good. So yeah. Anyway,
I just didn't like the way that you go from like one story to like half of another story, and they don't like finish it, and then you have to wait for the next episode. Yeah. It was a little bit of like a weird way for this episode. Like, I don't know. It wasn't my favorite episode.
I think they wanted to get some setup out of the way for the next episode, and they didn't have like a full story to tell necessarily about like the erythroblasts and everything. So
yeah.
I'm sure next episode is going to be pretty action-packed.
Oh, next episode I have high expectations for. This wasn't my favorite, but it wasn't like terrible either. So
no, yeah, I gotcha. Yeah. All right, Sundays we got Asobi Asobase, Workshop of Fun. So episode 5, Devilish Taste / Loaded Questions / Midas Curse / Sex Ed. So the episode starts with Hanako at home staring at her cat, who looks horrifying when he sleeps on the couch. Like, he has these like eyes that are half open, like bubbles come out of his mouth, like just horrifying cat. She asks Maeda, like, please confirm, like, I don't look anything like that. Like, I know some cat owners like look like their cats, and I don't want to look like that. And Maeda like doesn't have the heart to tell her that she like looks exactly the same way when she sleeps on the couch. So the girls all meet up. They have to work on this like a social studies project. And this is basically the first time they've seen each other like in street clothes away from school.
Oh my god.
And well, like, you know, Olivia and Kasumi are like pretty normally dressed. Like, Kasumi's got like a nice like long skirt. She looks like an adult. Olivia's like got a very simple getup, like, and like Kasumi's kind of angry at how like well she can pull off that simple outfit with like a little head ponytail and everything. They're normal. Like, they're pretty normal. Fucking Hanako shows up. She's got like what can only be described as like a pink bumblebee devil princess thing going on. And I was like, what the fuck are you right now?
And you asked, do you guys have a better subscription for this? And I was just like, no, I think you got it.
Pink bumblebee devil princess pretty much encapsulates it. Okay.
Yeah, so that's pretty much
she's
it.
Also like, this is haute couture because it's from Harajuku.
But that doesn't surprise me. Like, it reminded me of something like Lady Gaga would wear. And, like, doesn't she get a lot of those outfits from, like, haute couture people or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's totally, like, something fucking Ariana Grande would randomly wear. I don't think Ariana Grande would wear this, but she might. Anyway, they get to work, but Hanako asks Kasumi to teach her how to spin her pen, which is, by the way, I'm really jealous of this because I've never been able to spin my friggin' pen.
I don't really feel the need to fucking spin my pen. Why does it matter so much if you can do it or not? Who gives a shit?
It's the feelings of inadequacy because it's a simple looking thing and you can't do it. And you just feel like an idiot, and it sucks.
It's fine. Okay.
So she gives it a try, and it all leads to disaster. Like, the pen
Oh,
slips
it was
out of her hand.
epic. Okay, go ahead.
It flies into this woman's coffee. The coffee splatters on the woman, and this causes her to like launch her cigarette she was smoking into a nearby drape, which then lights the entire cafe on fire, burning it to the fucking ground.
No, and then
like,
this lady is outside, and she's just like, "It was a devil. It was this woman dressed as the devil."
And like, yeah, she quit. Like Hanako, like quickly changed out of her outfit into normal clothes, like so nobody would know. And like nobody recognizes her; they just get away with it.
Yep.
Okay, so the second part revolves around Olivia hearing a breakup happen outside of her window, where a girl from their school tells a guy she's dating that, by the way, I have what you have on the bottom side of your body. And so she's saying like she has a dick, and therefore they can't go out anymore. And the guy's like, I love you anyway. Let's keep going out. So Olivia hears this. She's like, what the fuck? So the next day at school, Olivia tells Kasumi and Hanako about this, and they like try to puzzle out what happened and if there's like a cross-dresser that's going to their school or something. Like, and they figure like if there is a cross-dresser, it's probably this girl named Aozora-san who doesn't change in the locker room ever. She's just hiding it. So
no, but okay.
Basically turns out
I think that we're gonna find out later that wasn't true and that she is a cross-dresser. She because like she has this smirk on her face when she says that shit, and I'm like, you a man. You
I wouldn't doubt it. Like she basically tries to explain it by saying like, I was just saying this stuff to dump the guy, and it didn't really work out because he wanted me anyway.
That's
I didn't
my
really
theory.
like this part because like I think maybe if what Kat's saying is true, it'll be a better setup for a joke. Like, I didn't think the joke of itself as it stands right now was like that great because it didn't come with like a big punchline or anything. It was just like, oh, she was just trying to dump him.
I'll agree with that. Like, this part wasn't the most hilarious, but my theory is later you're going to find out. Like, this is going to be recurring.
That could totally happen, yeah. So the third part of the episode, the president of the Occult Research Club is actually, they don't call it that. They call it something else, but it's basically the Occult Research Club, is named Oka, or Oka-san. And
I have something to say about that. Who the fuck drew her eyes that way? That is the most weird, fucked up character design I think I've ever seen. She looks like a Muppet with googly eyes. I don't understand why they did this. It's terrible.
She looks gorgeous to me. I don't know what you're talking about. Leah, did you get Susie vibes from like Little Witch Academia from this girl?
Yeah,
I totally did.
Yeah, totally. I totally did.
Not
dude.
good. It's not good.
So yeah, she's kind of depressed because like nobody is joining her club, and it's going to be reduced to a circle if like they don't find more members. And so she stumbles upon the girls playing with a Ouija board, and they ask her like, do you know any fun like occult games? And she gets really excited. And so she takes out like this little doll that's like the mascot of the show, which is like this stuffed fucking turd. And they cut the cotton out of it, right? And like basically turn it into almost like a voodoo doll called Maeda. And then they go through this like elaborate ritual, like, and all this stuff. And like, they realize they've basically started a horror movie plot, and then they start freaking out when they can't find the doll. They left it in the bathroom, and they think they're all going to die. And like, my favorite line from this whole section is like when Olivia's just like, I'm mad chicken when it comes to horror, dog. It was like, whoever translated that, like, touche. I like this. Okay, and then the last part is all about how badly Hanako wants to get a boyfriend, and in fact, become the most boyfriended girl in the whole world is what she says. That's what she really wants.
Whatever the fuck that means.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know what that would be.
They ask her what she would do if she got a boyfriend. She acts all shy and says she would hold hands and walk with him, but then maybe when they're 25, they get married and have 2 kids. And so all hell breaks loose when they ask Hanako if she knows how babies are made. And she's like, well, yeah, you like French kiss each other, right? And they're like, well, you know what French kissing is, right? It's actually just kissing. And she's like, well, then what's Frenching? And then Olivia like immediately jumps in at this opportunity to be like the meme lord of the fucking century and responds, maybe it's short for frontal cock kisses. And Olivia's like, that's how you get a baby. Kasumi tells them, you're both wrong. And she like nervously says like, you have to like dock with
I love like
other.
the hand motion she does when she's like, you have to dock, and like it's like a very intense, like almost a sports motion.
And then she starts like screaming. She's like, this is why I hate men. So good. And then so Hanako like pulls 2 dolls out of nowhere, and it's like, oh, Kasumi, just like show us how it works on the doll. And she like does her best, which is like not even close. They're like
some
laying
fucked up
diagonally.
Karma Sutra.
Yeah. And like Olivia goes on to say like, yeah, the guy gets on top of the girl, and then they send brainwaves to each other that just say like, we spawn child. And that's how it works.
If that was the case, there would be no accidental pregnancies, and the world would be a better place.
Yeah, for sure. Because the girl would be saying, no, spawn child, no.
Yes.
Their teacher walks in, and like, she's like so innocent, and she tries to explain to them, like when they ask her what to do with the dolls, and she's like, I'll just do what my friend showed me the other day, or told me the other day.
Man.
And she puts them in like this weird like London Bridge position or something that her friend told her about, and then like some weird upside down flying split thing.
Well, okay, and then like and she's like, my friend told me it feels really good, and I was like, I call bullshit on that. Call bullshit so hard. Like the very few times I have tried acrobatic bullshit like this, it never turns out well. It always ends up with someone hitting their head on the back of the wall or like falling into something. It's never good. Like, don't try this. And it's always
ruined.
Don't try this. And it's always like the nerdy dudes or like engineers who really want to do this stuff. Just take it from me. It's not going to turn out well. But I also know from my experience that you're not going to listen to me. So like if you do it, always tell them what you want to do first. Don't just do it and like expect that they're gonna know that like you want them to bend like in a bridge or some shit. Tell them what you want to do.
Kat, no, just hold this hold this angle. I calculated the torque beforehand. I got this. It's gonna be fine.
Don't just like lift some girl up in the air by her ass and just expect it's like, oh, I know I have to bend it like this way. Like no, you have to tell me. And then also when you do fall, I'm gonna fall on top of you because like that's. You decided to do this, and like you're gonna have to take that fall with grace, and you're not gonna complain, and you're just gonna get up and be like, well, that happened, and we're gonna move on.
So I'm laughing because like I'm imagining being this guy, and you're like knocked out on the floor after having like hit your head, and he's just there like with his chin in his palm. He's like, I guess I didn't account for the relative velocity of my dick. Oh shit!
All I'm gonna say is the last time we tried this, the guy almost had very intimate contact with the hotel room, like the corner of the hotel room dresser, because he fell back. And I was like, that's what you get.
You guys are doing a whole comedy routine on this right now.
I mean, it was fun. I really, the end of this episode was pretty hype, I have to say.
Yeah, no, it was fun. And I just was like, oh, this is perfect. But yeah, anyway.
I think you enjoyed the next episode more, Bcom.
Oh, they're both good. Yeah, so get into that one.
Episode 6, asterisk, studying for exams, a new look, spirited combat again. I missed the again my first time around.
Mm-hmm.
So, that first part actually kind of messed with the emotions a little bit. I was all over the place. I was actually kind of feeling bad for Okasan.
Mm-hmm.
So, the girls ask Okasan what happened to the rest of her club members and become curious about the one that got teleported. They get her name from her and ask Sensei if there's anyone with that name. There is, and she's currently sick at the hospital. Okasan wants to know what hospital, but she's like, well, since your friend didn't give it to you, I don't think I have the right to give it to you also. Whoever's clicking around, stop it. You block the text when you do that.
It wasn't me. I think it's Bcom. Is that you, Bcom?
You liar.
It pops up and it puts Nerdom and Nether nonsense over the line.
It's the green one.
I don't know what's
The green
behind
one
it.
is not me, and I know it's not Leo. So guess who it is, Bcom? We caught you, motherfucker.
Maybe there's like oh my god, there's like fourth person in this document, isn't there?
There is not.
So back in the club room, Okusan is basically crying her eyes out because she thought the girl was her friend. You know, why didn't tell her? Mm-hmm. And so what happened was the last day Okusan saw her, they were having club like usual, and Mato's girl name, she just kind of lays down on her front side, and Okusan's like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm fine." And she's like making up this story. She's like, "Hey, if I don't show up here lately, then like my fifth diagram or something in another works, and if I disappear, you know, that means it worked." And then like Olivia like loses it. She's like all the girls are like super affected by this story. It sounds so sad. And asks Okusan if there's any magic she can use to heal her friend. Okusan says that magic doesn't really work, and I lost it. But Olivia yells at her, "Why are you suddenly being so realistic? You always have such blind faith in the cult. Please don't come to your senses now." I was like, Jesus. So good. So what they do is they end up using another voodoo doll to try and get her to feel better. Apparently if they use the black-headed needles, then it helps cure her. And they just end up doing the whole front of her body because they don't know why she's hospitalized. So they just stab the whole front. And Sensei shows up and asks if they're like, "Oh, well, did you stab her butt?" And then she stops herself since she is in the hospital for hemorrhoid surgery. So that's why she didn't tell her friend. And it's so funny because early on, I bet it's hemorrhoids. And it's only because I was listening to Jim Jeffries' podcast and he started talking about hemorrhoids or something.
Why are there so many podcasts that talk about hemorrhoids? Because like there's a whole thing with Rooster Teeth too, where they talk about how one of the hosts got hemorrhoids.
Well, and also Your Mom's House with Tom Segura and Christina Pajinski, they talk about, in the last one or two, talked about hemorrhoids. And it's because Christina just had their second child, and she got hemorrhoids from it. So,
yeah.
Well, that's more
so,
understandable.
Like, they have a reason, but you are right. I did think that. I was like, why is that popping up so much?
It's weird.
Don't talk about hemorrhoids and popping up. Oh, I can feel the pain.
Oh, God. We're not going to talk about this. So next part, Hanako went on this just like crazy balls to the wall studying schedule so she could obtain like first place in her year because you know they rank them over there. But she ends up getting second to another girl who like she just casually hears her say, "Oh, I was just studying with my boyfriend." And of course, this just like almost kills Hanako right where she stands. And then she's in the club room all by herself, and because the other two just like totally bombed it, they have to take like remedial classes or whatever. And then Maida, of course, shows up in the usual fashion and scares the shit out of her. But him and her grandpa were worried about her, so they made her a boyfriend android.
I love they have this conversation, right? Like, it's just fucking killed me. Like, where her grandfather's talking to Maeda about like. No, she's too young to have a boyfriend. Like,
she's like she has a full coat of pubic hair or something like that. And I was like, what the hell?
I was like, why is your grandfather talking about this? Oh my god!
But like, okay,
full coats.
I know the android does look like a dating sim boy. Like it does look perfect. It does. But the voice.
But they've recorded all the lines. Like,
oh my god!
So the most unfortunate parts is just like straight up her grandfather's voice, which of course would fuck with you so bad. So eventually just Hanako loses it and just like rips its head off, and that's like when the other two return and they're like, "We left her alone for an hour, she's already killed a man." Fucking just dying.
Yeah, like when she ripped his head off and like somebody came in and like she's holding the head like above her head and like Maeda is just in the background like in a prayer stance with his eyes closed like, "Oh, I died immediately." And like the android's eyes are like still open.
It still talks. It's hilarious. So moving on to the next one, I inwardly cringed and laughed.
I cringed so much because I did something very similar to this when I was a teenager, and I was like, "No,"
I'm sure. So what's going on is basically it's hot. And Olivia's hair is bothering her. So she decides to cut it herself. I was immediately like, no. And she starts off with just like a lock of hair. And then, like, as soon as she cuts it, her and Hanako just lose their fucking shit. And Kasumi's like, oh, well, you can't even know this. You know, it's not, you know, it's just a little lock. You wouldn't notice unless you were really specifically looking for it. And then just immediately, Olivia and Hanako are like, oh, okay, let's try the bangs.
No, like, that's the worst thing you could do. No.
And then she becomes like Deko Mori, if anybody knows that character from Chunibyo, with like the really big forehead and really short bangs. Like,
no, okay, so my story is I used to have hair down to my ass. And then when I was, I think 13 or 14, I just decided, I was like, I'm going to cut all this off. And I literally like cut all of it off. And I decided I wanted bangs, and I have really curly hair. And if you know anything about bangs and curly hair, they don't go together. So I looked really bad.
How did your mom react? That's what I want to know.
She actually almost fainted because, like, I came home.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So I was like, not the bangs, because that's like the worst thing you can do is like do your own bangs. So
of course the bangs just go horribly wrong, and Kasumi suggests she takes some of her hair behind it and just like loop it forward, and then she cuts that too, and it looks like fucking shit.
It's so bad.
Oh god. So Sensei shows up and she's like, oh, I can fix it. I cut mine all the time. And then, like, as she's bringing the scissors in, Olivia kind of looks up and she's like, your bangs look like shit. And then it's just too late. It's just like snip. And then you just like hear them screaming.
What I really like about this is that her hair like persists into the next part of this episode too. Like,
yes.
They don't change it back. Like, it's still shitty in the next part.
So this is where I thought I may be having a stroke. So having just watched Cells before this and sitting there going, didn't we already have this scene already? And at that point I was like, okay, I'm just going to write that off as a recurring joke. But then so the scene starts. It's funny because like Hanako walks in and she's like, oh, hi, Sensei. Oh, wait, you're Olivia. And then the other girl walks in and she says something like, half Sensei and half Olivia's name. And Olivia's like, come on, guys. So what happens is Hanako's something like, hey, let's play that Daikon game. And I'm like, we did that game, didn't we? And then they proceed to do scene by scene of, you know, Kasumi sitting down and then Hanako trying to pull her and can't pull her. And I'm just like, what is going on? And then they move on to the next scene where it's Hanako and Olivia, where they're linked together. And this is when I'm just like, I'm 100% sure this has already happened. Is this what it's like to have a stroke? I was super confused because they just happened so close together. But then anyways, they change it up very quickly at the end where Sensei shows up and she gets roped into the play and it's like the first one out. But you guys have no idea. I was seriously sitting here just, my mind was blown. I was like, what is the coincidence of this happening? Did Crunchyroll somehow mess up and like scotch tape these together somehow badly? But I almost couldn't deal with it for a second. I did pause and just like, do I need to Google search this real quick?
I did like at the beginning of that Daikon game when Hanako's talking about the rules and like the Crunchyroll subtitles. I give them a lot of shit sometimes, but this one was like a brilliant translation because she's just like, the rules of the Daikon game might be a little Maeda-fied, like so like modified, but Maeda. I was like, oh, that's an awesome translation. I don't care. Like, that's amazing.
Yep.
I was really happy about that.
I just loved how it went from like cutesy and like tee hee hee to like this is a horror movie in like 2 seconds.
Also, I can't remember when it happened in the episode, but there's this one part where Hanako just like slams her head into the chalkboard and then like a sea of blood starts coming down out of her forehead. And she's like, I lost my memories or something. I think it was during the android part, like near the end of that, so she could forget all about everything that happened or something. I can't remember. It was hilarious though.
Yeah, this show just, every episode just has me cracking up. It's one of those top comedy shows I will definitely recommend to people. And like we brought it up before, like if you have somebody watch the intro and then pause it and go, what do you think the show's about? They're not going to be close at all.
Yeah, right.
And then you start getting into the show and they're like, what is going on? And then of course they end it with the crazy metal song, and probably at that point you either got somebody on board or they're just like, don't show me this messed up shit ever again. That's why I love it so much.
Well, let's jump into the next show, Planet With.
Yes, this show
5.
got so much better. These 2 episodes.
I'm still not digging it, but you are right. It is doing better.
Okay. Paladin Break Part 1. So these 2 episodes are 2 parts. So the episode opens with Takezo, who's the old man, telling Yosuke that like Takashi isn't actually his child. But around 50 years ago, like he and his wife were out for a walk one night, and basically like the origin story of Superman, like Takashi just comes like rocketing down like a meteor out of the sky, and they just raise him as their own, right? He's like in a bubble, like a protective bubble.
I love how he's like, really? And then Takezo's like, no, I'm just kidding. But like you can tell he's fucking not kidding.
Yeah, no.
Also, the guy Yosuke is like the most fucking useless character in this show. Why is he even here?
It was kind of weird to see him like back, and like I understand his reasons because we saw him run out with Benica at the end of the last episode. I thought he was gonna like stick with Benica and not fight anymore, but he has his reasons for still fighting. He hasn't really gotten his episode yet, though. I assume he's gonna get one. But meanwhile, Soya seems to be slowly regaining memories of his older brother, and like Nozomi picks up on this and is like about to point it out, but like they're interrupted when Nezuya arrives at the research club, and he's acting really strangely. Like, and for him, acting strange is acting like a completely normal person with like no fire and like no soul, like no craziness. And like Soya puts it together that like whatever happened to him inside of the nebula weapon has like killed that fire that was inside him.
Yep.
He's clearly lost something because of this sealing process. So afterwards, Nozomi's walking home with Soya, and she confronts him about like his like weird behavior, and he tries to like run away when she starts guessing at like what's been going on with him, and she like tracks him down and like open field tackles him from behind. Like she's super fast. And she finally gets Soya to admit, like, I don't know if you'll believe me, but like I'm an alien, and we look human because like aliens and humans both developed from like the same ancestral race, which is apparently pretty common in the galaxy. And like, if I recall correctly, this is actually like a fairly similar explanation to why all of the alien races in Star Trek look like humanoids. It's because they all come from like some common ancestral race that just like branched out all across the universe.
Makes sense.
So all in all,
I mean,
like,
if you want to be realistic somehow, it makes sense. But
yeah, it's like slightly realistic idea. All in all, Nozomi is like pretty accepting of all this. Like she kind of takes it in stride, and like you can see like she really more cares about like Soya than like anything going on with this galactic fight. Like she thanks him for protecting the town, and he's sort of confused until Ginkgo reminds him like, yeah, you've been protecting the town like from destruction. Like when the dragon attacked, you stopped it from doing more damage. So another nebula weapon arrives at this point. And this time only Takezo and Yosuke are there to fight it. They're the only ones left. And it is a turtle with an elephant on top of the turtle.
Oh, and the snake. The snake in the rice.
There's like a bowl of rice, and a snake has like fallen asleep in it.
It's the
I thought the
thing.
silhouette of this, because like the snake's body, right, like flops over both sides of the bowl, and like the turtle looks like the bottom and like 4 legs. It kind of looked like a dog to me, and like like the dog has been sending these things. So the droopy like ends of the snake kind of like looked like droopy floppy ears of a dog. I don't know if that was meant to be a symbol or not. It just seemed like it to me. So yeah, Yosuke only seems to be fighting though because he doesn't want Takezo, the old man, to have to fight all on his own in case something bad happens to him.
Yeah.
So Ginkgo and Sensei warn Soya that the humans are at like a huge disadvantage against this enemy, and that like this may very well maybe like the Sealing faction's end game. Like they may mean to end all human resistance right now. And because of the change he saw in Nezuya, Soya doesn't want that to happen. So when Takizo enters like the belly of the turtle and inside the weapon, he like is shown like an army of girls in like maid outfits and bunny like suits, and like they're all serving him like meat and alcohol, and he like enjoys it for like a few minutes, like, right? And Ginkgo is explaining like, yes, like as we figured out, like when you go inside these dreams, it like shows you the things like your heart desires, and like, but she explains it steals like all of your heart's like hunger to move forward and like all of your hope. So it just like sort of like makes you into like a walking like zombie who's like got all of their desires like fully sated, but like can't move or do anything.
Well, that makes a lot of sense to me, because like if you think about it, a lot of where people's ambition and like drive comes from is like when they experience like loss or like hurt or suffering, like they want something. And they don't get it.
Or they crave something, they want something. Yeah,
and without that, like you're happier, but like you don't have that drive. It's interesting. So,
and like it turns out like Grandpa guy has pretty good self-control, because like he hears like Yosuke yell out like, "Get out of there already," and like he busts the weapon out from inside. He basically is like, "All right, it's time to leave." But as it's breaking apart, there's like a second level to it. Like he sees this green glowing ghost of his wife Eiko, who has passed on, and like she kind of like talks to him, and he explains to her that like he's the only remaining member of this group of grand paladins with Takashi. And like since Yosuke's heart he knows isn't even in it anymore, like he has to stand by his son. He has to try to protect him. And Eiko's just like, "All right, I'm glad I have such a good husband." And like he's like he tells like the dog guys like, "Oh, that was harder than before, like Nebula dudes, like, but I still breaking out." But once he destroys that weapon completely, he gets out and the snake is still alive. Apparently it was like a whole separate weapon completely from the first thing. So it wasn't destroyed. It quickly flies past them towards the town, and it's about to attack when like Soya and the sensei use cat doping again to like fly out of nowhere and kick it in the face. And the snake, I really like the sound effects of the snake. Like I like all the sound effects of the like weapons in this show, but it makes this like distorted like tubular noise. It's super loud when it like yells.
The animation of the snake is weird, because like you're intimidated by it. And you're like, "Oh God, like this is a fucking badass thing," but like it looks bizarre, and so you it's like a weird, like, it's strange to be like, "Oh no," about this weird animation of a snake. So
Soya cuts the snake into pieces, like right with like one swift strike from his sword. And then Takizo tries to get the jump on Soya, like, because he's gotten back into his mech, and like he sees that Soya has like sort of let his guard down after like taking down the snake, and so he rushes at him, but he doesn't get the best of him. Like he avoids it. They come to a standoff, and Ginkgo just like warns Soya, like, "Do not get hit by that old man's sword. It's really dangerous." Like Sensei says, like, whatever you do, don't get hit by it. And then as they're like at a standoff, Takizo asks Soya like, "Why are you fighting, and who is your enemy?" And Soya, just being like headstrong, says like, "I'm friends with those I want to befriend, and I'm enemies with those I want to defeat." And Takizo's like, "So you're just like a beast."
I found this. Oh, sorry. I found this.
Oh, no, it's okay. What'd you find?
As if Takizo is almost being self-reflective, because if you think about it, you find out later that Takizo believes that his son is wrong, but he is still fighting for his son. And so he is doing the same thing, right? Like he is being on the side of people that he loves, even though he knows he doesn't care as much about like the cause as he does the people, right? And he's calling Soya a beast for being that way. So it's almost like he's thinking about himself and like what he's doing in a weird way. You know?
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. And like both of them are kind of paralleling each other as well, because like Soya asks like his brother for courage to charge at Takizo. Like he's like his courage comes from like believing in his brother and trying to be like his brother, and then Takizo like pleads for his own inner power. Like he pleads with Eiko, his dead wife, to provide him with the power he needs to like block this kid's strike. And so they cut it off just as they're about to hit each other. And then finally, as it ends, like Takashi is standing on top of a building with his like secretary Shiraishi, who it turns out she's like the green-haired one with the glasses. She's the secretary of like the head of the Ceiling Dog faction, like the Generalissimo guy. And the dog himself, like appears out of a portal and tells Takashi like, your rental time with my secretary is up and it's time for a final battle. And so, like, Generalissimo, like, eats Shiraishi, who is clearly another Nebula soldier, and transforms into, like, a dog mech, just like the cat, like Sensei. And Takashi transforms into his, like, crystallized, like, dragon form. And they all prepare for a big battle. And so, yeah, it was pretty cool, like, build up to this next episode.
Why don't you say what your note was, Leo?
Oh, I had meat as I watched this show.
You bastard.
I was sitting here eating it, and I was like, this is kind of ironic.
No, that's funny. Yeah, it builds well into the next episode, so Leo, you might as well launch into it.
So, old man Takizo loses the fight against Soya, and Takashi starts his fight with his former secretary Kogane, and then we just cut to the intro. And also, Takazoa, yeah, so he gives over his crystal, and then Yosuke does the same, saying he will only keeping his so he could help the old man from falling, and like the dude just gave up his crystal like nothing. I don't know why he's in this show. According to Soya, he has only one person left to defeat with the largest presence of the Dragon's Aura. Then we go to Takashi's battle. Actually goes on for quite a while, and there's some pretty good, interesting dialogue. Like Takashi says what they're doing is an invasion, and the Generalissimo, who is the dog, speaks through Kogane and says they're doing it to save them from themselves, and it's not an invasion. Takashi pretty much thinks that's just bullshit, and Kogane counters with, "Excuse us for taking a loaded weapon from a child," for which Takashi replies, "It's because you're so old, you're arrogant." I thought it was just some pretty good banter back and forth. And then Takashi also reveals that his plan is to become the strongest and basically take all the weapons from everybody else and have eternal peace and no wars. And he also doesn't give a crap if he destroys the city in the process. So, I don't know. That's pretty crazy.
There's a lot of like conflicting morals in this that just sort of like clash against each other and make you think a lot. Like at one point, I think Takashi is basically like, why don't you just say that you don't want to like destroy the city because you don't want to destroy our chance to like produce stuff for you? Because he's kind of saying like, you're going to turn us into your slaves or whatever. It's interesting.
Yeah, one of you changed somebody's name through this whole thing.
Yeah, well, you were listing Generalissimo as the Japanese word they were using to say that, which was kaka, which is not his name.
I was just going by my anime list. I don't really care.
Oh, you shouldn't be kaka on my. Whoever wrote that is an idiot too. So
it's on my anime list.
Yeah, because they should know. They should know that that's just a fucking title. Anyway.
Yeah, it's like if you had watched any of Legend of the Galactic Heroes, like you would have heard kaka like 1,000 times.
You don't even have to watch that. Like I mean, there's a lot of anime that have kaka in it.
Yeah.
All right, so General Elysium wonders why Takashi's psychic power feels exactly as the dragons that was destroyed, and I might say they went like over the top with that one, like some 77 seals and managed to get to some like crazy subspace mumbo jumbo. They got crazy. He thinks Takashi might actually be the reincarnation. That dragon also, we actually found out why it kind of targeted Soya's race is because they were warlike, and it also kind of did it of its own accord. Like it was part of like the Generalissimo's, whatever you want to call the armies and stuff. And then it just kind of went rogue on its own, which is why I got banished and all that stuff.
Yeah, they say it was like out of its own sense of justice, it wanted to destroy this warlike race. Yeah.
So Soya goes back to the cat spaceship, and Giko joins him in the cockpit so they can fight with the power of two people. They then wait for them to come to him. Kogane ends up using the shield that they used earlier to like stop one of his attacks to transport Takashi to Soya. And Soya wastes absolutely no time and attacks Takashi. He forces Takashi to like dragonfly, as we saw earlier in Harumi, but he still maintains control. And then they kind of duke out for a bit, and then Takashi goes to like fire a giant beam, and Soya manages to like barely deflect it and defeat Takashi, who's like still tries to fight with like what low power he has left, and Soya ends up like punching him in the face because he has this clog in his hand and just like fucking face palms him with it.
That was pretty epic.
Like, justice isn't even as useful as this clog, motherfucker.
So, and then the end, I got totally lost. So it just got really weird. Takashi turns into dust, and Soya sees a vision of his brother, and then he's like, "It's over, Nissan." And the episode ends, and I'm like, "What the fuck was that all about?"
Well, what Soya is saying is that at least Soya's trying to tell his brother, like, "I finished it. I defeated the dragon who
but why
killed
did
you."
Takashi turn.
He's getting
into dust?
closure. He's feeling closure.
Well, Takashi's dead is what happened. Like, Soya. Well, also there was that whole thing beforehand where like Takizo asked Soya, like, if you can just take his power away, he might be able to just turn into that kind boy he was before he thought he could like reign over the world and impose his own sense of justice, right? And so, but like Soya like just straight up kills him, like turns him into dust. And maybe it's partially because like the dragon's power like turned him into something that was.
I think he didn't mean to kill him. It's just like when his power was done, like he died. Yeah.
I also thought his brother, I'm reading into this heavily, but like the look that his brother kind of gives like Soya and like Takashi as he's like there on the ground, like dead, is I think one of like disappointment. Because I think if I had to guess, I think his brother was trying to protect Soya from ever having to walk down this path and to like follow in the like warlike, like violent footsteps of the like all the whole Sarusian race. And I assume he's kind of upset that his brother has had to follow this path of destruction rather than the path of love that he would probably prefer his brother had gone down. But I'm like heavily reading into that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I found it very interesting how Takashi and the dog sealing faction are in some ways very similar. And in fact, they worked on the same team before the dragon went rogue or whatever. But it's so, even when people have very similar morals and ideas, it's so still easy for them to clash. Like everyone has their own. I don't know. There was a lot of fascinating morality in that fight between Takashi and the sealing team.
Because they're both yelling at each other about like how your morals aren't what they seem, like you're an invader, and like, but he has his own invasive ideas of like imposing justice on everybody. Like they're the same. Like they both want to control people, and so it's interesting.
It is interesting. It's very interesting.
That's why I highlighted their little back and forth there, because I was like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I really liked this episode, especially towards the end. I thought it got like pretty powerful, and I thought of like a lot of things came together. It felt crazy to be in episode 6 of an anime. Like it feels like we've come really far.
Yeah,
in 6
this
episodes.
arc, like they completely finished this arc, and like so much has happened, and we still have half of the show left.
Yeah, so I'm
really
very
impressive.
curious about the second half.
That definitely caught my attention, because I'm like, well, geez, where are they going with this? Are they going to go like Gurren Lagann crazy?
Well, isn't this just like a huge tribute to Gurren Lagann? Because like the whole idea of like freedom and following your own morality and fighting against people,
I think it's a huge
picking
tribute
stuff
to
for you.
everything.
But it's like well done. It's like, it's not like Darling in the Franxx where it's just ripping shit off. Like this is really good, in my opinion. It's a little bizarre, but it's really good.
I would say Soya still has all of those vials of dragon dust. All of those Grand Paladin fighters still exist. They just don't have a leader anymore. Maybe they will join him now in trying to defeat like the sealing faction, who I assume are not going to take this defeat very well. I assume they're going to keep coming and try to impose their will on everybody.
Well, they're not the ones who got defeated.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. It is interesting. There's like, it's kind of like messy how it ended up in the end there.
Because the General Izumio was totally against Takashi and intentionally sent him to Soya, so he could be defeated. So
true. I don't know. I'm excited to see what happens.
I really liked that you said that the mid-season wrap-up of the arc was spectacular, because I totally agree, Bcom. This is a very spectacular end to this arc. Like, they really showed that this is a strong show. Like, I know there's been a lot of back and forth about, like, is this show good? Is this show just weird? I really think, like, these 2 episodes show, like, no, this show is good. It's a little bizarre, but it's good. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next show, we Rent Tsukumogami. Episode 5, Fukagawa Nezumi. I think that means something like mouse. Who fucking knows? So,
jeez, I think we can already tell your opinion on this show.
So we find out at the beginning of this episode that the dude Oko was kind of in love with. Like, it's weird because I get like weird nebulous vibes from her with this guy. Do you guys get nebulous vibes from her with this dude?
Yeah, they're like, I don't know, this show is playing it like coy, I guess, with her, but it's like just kind of annoying. I kind of would like to know like how she feels more. It just seems like they're holding that back as a thing to hold back so they can surprise us later.
Yeah, so
I
like
guess.
there's at one point where like he's engaged to another girl from a richer family, and that family gave his family a fancy incense burner. And imagine having your future bartered off for basically like an antique. Like, well, they gave us this couch, so you have to marry her now. Sorry about that, honey. Like, that's the way it goes.
If her family gave me like the $800 Legend of the Galactic Heroes set that just came out, I would have to think about marriage. Like, I would be forced to think about it.
Seriously, I have to consider this now. Okay.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, no, and so she's like, he basically keeps coming into their place and saying like, I love you though, even though I'm engaged to another girl. And she's kind of like, well, I like you, but I'm not sure I want to get married. And like, and then his mom comes in and is all like, well, fine, if you want to marry this bitch instead, but like, she's got to prove to me that she's good enough for my son. And then of course poor Oko's like in the corner like, but I'm not really sure I want to get married to your son. But like, apparently that doesn't fucking matter, because like this was already decided. Yeah, so after that little character reveal, the mystery of this episode kind of unfolds. And it's basically about this bandit going around named Itachi Kozo. And he first appears when some tavern girl was basically getting like at first it's like cute bar harassment, like, right? Like, you know, customers like, whoa, ho, ho. Like, I'm
cute harassment. Wow.
Well, I know what you're saying, though.
Yeah,
like,
at first
it was like
it's
cute
like,
flirtation at first.
Yeah, it's like, I'm a big man and I have power and like, I want you. And then later it's more like, I'm gonna blatantly assault you. And so and so it's like an official, so he's got some power. And so she goes to this shrine and like prays that something bad will happen to him, I guess. And then he goes, this Robin Hood guy named Kozo goes and saves her. And like, it's all over the newspapers and everyone's like, look at this, like, he stole from this dude and that's bad, but like, he saved this bar girl, so like, that's good. So Heizo, who is Seiji's friend, is investigating this bandit guy, and I guess the bandit stole his like weapon and he calls it his jittle. And I looked this up, it's like a weird
jitta,
or I don't know, the subtitles like typed it as jittle, and I was like, what? But I think it's kind of like a weird, like, blunt, like, you know, those police staffs that they carry around and they beat people with. It reminds me of that.
Yeah.
Baton.
Kind of.
Like a billy club or something, yeah.
Yeah, like a 18th century version of that. And at one point, the doll spirit, like, falls in love with this bandit guy. But I think that's just supposed to be, like, a stereotype about how naive girls, like, sometimes fall for, like, stupid bad boys, because she gets over him like super fast. But Heizo, Seiji's friend, is an okapi, which is kind of the same thing. Like an okapi would be like what we consider like a private investigator or like a spy. And apparently they're usually former criminals. And so every time Heizo is in a scene, he's like stealing things, like playfully, which is interesting. So Heizo seems really bad at figuring out like what's going on though, because I knew almost from like the first 10 minutes, like I was like, oh, is it the newspaper guy? Is he the one doing it?
Yeah.
And like lo and behold,
it
it's the newspaper guy, because he was like, well, I can't sell any newspapers because fucking nothing happens in this town because it's the 18th century. So I need to make it interesting. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna steal some stuff and write about it in the newspaper. But Heizo doesn't figure this out at all. Seiji basically ends up doing Heizo's job for him, and then it's like, hey, dude, guess what? Solved that for you. And yeah, that was kind of dumb to me. I don't know. The issue with these stories is they aren't hard enough sometimes. Like, there were little clues throughout where it's like, oh, the stories that were being published are untrue. But like, I didn't even need that clue. Like, it's pretty obvious. I don't know.
It was obvious just from like the way he looked. Like he just looked exactly the same in the newspaper. I get up. Like it was just like, oh, they're not even trying to hide that this is the same guy. I don't know. It's so weird.
Kind of holding your hand, I would say.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. So like, and the way they capture the guy is totally bizarre too. Because like Heizo, like Seiji comes up to him and is like, "Hey Heizo, it's the newspaper guy. I just want to let you know." And Heizo is just like, all right then, and like in the middle of the street just like pulls out this fucking rope and is like, let's go, and like lassos him in the middle of the street. And it's like, well, maybe that's not the best decision that you could have made, but it's done now. But yeah, no, it was another dumb episode of Tsukumogami. What did you think, Bcom?
Yeah, I just agree with you. Like, the biggest problem with the show right now is that, like, the twists are crystal clear from, like, the beginning of the show. And that kind of makes the rest of the episode sort of tedious as they, like, slowly reveal the thing that you already know. And that's what kills mystery shows. Like, when it's so easy, or when there's the two things that kill mystery shows are either it's so easy that you know right away, or it's so ridiculous and, like, hard that, like, only the person in the show could have ever figured it out, and you could have never figured it out without like divine intervention. And so this is the easy end of the spectrum. It's just boring.
I think that's like the weakness of almost all mystery shows. Like, I've never really enjoyed very many of them because, like you said, they're either too hard or too easy, and I don't know, it's weird. But yep. So yeah, on to episode 6, Heiki Ruri. So at the beginning of this episode, that Playboy, not Playboy guy who like is kind of hot, is stumbling over a bridge early in the morning, and Seiji is out kind of for a walk early in the morning and sees him, and like, to me, he looked drunk. I thought he had been out drinking all night or something, but apparently he like is just distressed because he's trying to exercise and lose weight, because like that girl that he really likes, Ohana, the dumpling girl who works at the sweet shop, like he's been going to see her and like eating a bunch of dumplings and paying for a bunch of dumplings and getting like fat and broke. And so he's like, I need to lose weight. And so he's trying to run, but apparently he sucks ass at it and he needs to stop because like, Jesus. Seiji like catches him as he's about to like fall off the bridge because he's stumbling around like a drunk. And then they like talk for a bit and they're like, oh, good thing you didn't fall. And then they both fall in the river like immediately after he says that. And I'm just like, well, I guess they didn't die. So I guess even if he had fallen in, it would have been fine. I don't know. But that guy loses the seal spirit that he carried with him. You remember the one that picked a fight with the other ones in the bar from last episode?
Yeah. was kind of laughing when that thing was at the bottom of the river, and he was like, "Oh no, like it just like swims to the top." It's like, what if this guy's fucked?
But yeah, no, and I just kept thinking throughout this episode, because then Seiji's like, I need to help you get the seal back, because like they look for it, they can't find it. Later on, this guy comes up to that rich boy and is like, aha, I have the seal because I found it, and like I'll give it back to you for money. And Seiji's like trying to help him with raise the money, and I was thinking, like, why do you care? Like, this is not your problem. Like, you fell in the river because he was being a dumbass. It's not your fault that he fell. It's not your fault that he lost his shit. Like, you're not friends. You didn't even like him like a couple episodes ago at all. What is the business of this of yours, is it? And like, maybe there's just not much going on in 18th century Japan, so like anything is better than like the existential dread of like the void creeping up on you. And maybe that's why, I don't know. But Seiji was like, no, I need to help this dude, even though like it's none of my fucking business. So he's helping him. Also, like, the amount of money that he wants for the seal is absolutely ridiculous. Like, I guess if he doesn't get the seal back because it's such an antique of his family's, he's gonna get like disowned. And this guy wants like $27,000 for the seal, because I did like a little bit of calculations, because he said he wanted 30 Ryo, and 30 Ryo is about 1,000,000 yen, which is about $9,000. So if you calculate all that up, like 10 times 3, because 10 Ryo is 1,000,000 yen or $9,000, that would be $27,000 this dude wants for the seal. That's a shit ton of money.
That's a lot of friggin' money.
That's a shit ton of money.
That's not even adjusting for inflation either, right?
No, that's adjusting like today's money.
Right.
So, yeah, but the show adjusts for inflation for you a little bit. So I think it is adjusted pretty well. But it's still a lot of fucking money. Like, I don't know if like your con on the street to get a little bit of money on this guy should be for $27,000. I think maybe you should have gone for like a couple $1,000s and then called it a day and been like, man, I got lucky. But no. So Seiji and this guy are trying to raise all this money. In the meantime, you get the side story of Oko and her like bitch boy again, and I'm calling him bitch boy because he's annoying. Like, he lets his mom kind of burden Oko with this like task, and like basically they're bringing it up because it's similar to what they're doing for the main plot of this episode. Like, she has to raise all this money for, you know, to prove that she's good enough for this dude. Like, if your mom was doing that to the girl you wanted to marry, like, you would probably say something and be like, listen, that's not fair. Like, you wouldn't just sit back and be like, well, I guess she's got to work hard. And then also the other girl that is interested in you is like picking on her. And this dude's not like, hey, don't do that. Like, I don't know. He's a bitch boy because he doesn't do shit. And she has to deal with all this stuff for him. Like,
he's just a mama's boy.
He brings
he's a mama's boy.
Drama into her life, and she's got to deal with it. That's not the man you want in your life. Also, the other girl who's like was engaged to him is a catty bitch. Like, she comes into like their place in the past and is like, that's my man that I'm gonna marry one day. Oh, and like, to me, if never fight over a guy. Like, if a guy is really like wandering and is like, which one do I pick? Like, let him wander right over to that other one, because that's not the guy you want. Like,
no, yeah,
it's just dumb. It's dumb.
Welcome to Cat's Romance Advice Corner.
But yeah, so they're able to raise the money in time for the main plot of this episode. But then when they go to give it to the dude, the guy almost doubles the price from like 30 Ryo to 50. Dude, you just got $27,000 in a day. Shut your fucking mouth and walk away. I don't understand this dude. Why would he do that? That's stupid.
I don't know.
That's a lot of fucking money that he basically got given on a golden platter. that dude was stupid. Then he's like, ho, I'm gonna double the price. And then the Tsukogami is angry and he bites this dude. And the dude runs away, terrified. First, like, okay, even if, like, some ghost was attacking me and there was $27,000 in a briefcase, I would be like, I don't give a shit.
I'm imagining this.
I don't give a shit. You can attack me. You can do whatever the fuck you want. I'm standing right here with this $27,000. Like, no. That's
I kind of
stupid.
agree. Like, I would do a lot for a briefcase with $27,000 in it.
Right?
Exactly. But yeah, that's...
To be fair, Kat,
yeah.
I don't have strong feelings on this part of this episode because I was asleep at this point in time. I had been falling asleep in and out the entire episode. Part of that's my fault. Ouch. I was watching this in bed, like, as I was watching it, and so, like, obviously that helped. But man, this show has been boring for like the last 4 episods in a row, pretty much. Like, there's been like moments of fun stuff, but like, man,
I agree with you. Like, it's been fucking boring. It had promise the first few episodes, and then it just like slid off that mud cliff and like went down. Like, you know, like sometimes you make a bad decision. Like, have you ever been out like snowboarding and you see like a really good hill and like no one is going down it, and you're like, this looks fun. And like you go with your friends, and then you realize halfway down that it's like secretly under the snow there's mud, and like you're just muddy and gross by the time you're at the bottom. Like that's this show. Oh, and you just found out. Yes, I've done that before. That's the story that's happened to me. So, but yeah, that's this show.
It looked fun, but then no, it wasn't fun in the end.
Beware of cliff drop.
Exactly. But yeah, but I don't know. And I'm also just like, I know like you weren't interested in this part. I am very interested in money, and anytime there's money in a show. And so for me, I was just outraged at this part. There's no way I'm ignoring that.
You have expressed your money worries in the show before. What was the one with like the $10,000 cash that they just threw away? Oh, Doreku.
Yeah.
Oh, Doreku. God damn it. Yeah. That was your best plan, Doreku? Anyway, yeah, we've had that conversation.
But yeah, so that's this shitty show. That's the end of this episode. Now to a not so shitty show.
No, this Attack on Titan is a very good show on this season 3. Mm-hmm. So, episode 5, Reply. Are you guys ready for this? Because there's a lot.
Yeah, these 2 episodes are pretty interesting. Like, I really liked these episodes.
Yeah, I did my best to condense it.
Condense it.
Thank you. All right, so here we go. So Erwin he's taken before the council or whatever, and he starts to plead his case that without the scouts, there could be civil war. He explains that if Wall Rose fell again, the people who would have to retreat to Walsina, and the food supplies there are already, they haven't been replaced since the last time it fell, so they couldn't really support them. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, they would then resort to, like, basically civil war as they try to find more food. He says you need the scouts to take back Wall Maria, because even as now, the people of Wall Rose aren't getting enough food and would likely come for them eventually in the end, no matter what. They go on to say that Erwin is there because he has on multiple occasions refused to hand over Aaron, and what he has done is basically considered treason. They talk about some like Charter 6 or something like that. Mm-hmm. They do suspect Pixis of maybe being in cahoots with Erwin, but he gives a satisfactory reply and whatnot, and they just kind of go with it and whatnot.
Pixis plays it real cool on that part.
Yeah. His reply is like spot on. And then suddenly one of Pixis' soldiers bursts through the door saying that the Colossal Titan and Armor Titan have broken through Wall Rose and are destroying the place. One of the councilmen
which I was like, that's random. I wonder what's going on there.
Yeah, you didn't see the setup coming. Yeah. Yeah. So one of the councilmen say to have Walsina close all gates, and it causes everybody else in the room to question them since he is sentencing half of the human population to death. Mm-hmm. And then another one of the commanders in the room refuses to do it because he is a resident of Wall Rose and his family's over there. And then suddenly a man named Dallas Zachary, have we met him yet before?
I think we've seen him in a previous season, maybe as like a judge or something for Aaron. I can't remember.
Yeah. probably wasn't that big of a part then. But anyways, he enters the room with like some more soldiers and says he agrees with this man. He also reveals that breaking of Wall Rose was false, and it was a test to see how they would react.
Damn.
Yeah. Pixis then comes forward as the plan was like, he's like, it was all my idea.
I kind of thought that was the case though, because like the way that they like just barge in, I'm like, there's no way this is actually happening, right?
No, I felt like as soon as they barged in, you're like, yeah, they're just doing this to trick them. So
yeah.
So he believes in saving people, and if they didn't, he was going to side with Irwin or something like that. And then he says this is a coup, and during all of this, they rounded up all the interior police at the same time.
Leo, stop! I need you to stop everything. What does he say it is?
It's a coup.
It's a coup. You said it's a coup. A coop, like a chicken coop. I love you, Leo.
I've ever heard it spoken, I guess. Whatever.
I'm just teasing you. It's okay. I have that terrible
Leo's
shit.
not French, okay?
I do that shit sometimes too. I just like to call it out. All right.
Okay.
Well, before we get back into it, I really did like this whole scene. Like, I love like the music in the background, right? Like as everything's like closing in on these fucking asshole nobles who are just the biggest douchebags ever, who are like just ready to just like sacrifice like half of all humanity just in an instant for their own, well-being. Basically, it was ridiculous.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I thought that Pixis was the more interesting character in this situation because you've got Erwin versus Pixis basically, and they've both been held up as very like dynamic characters who do a lot for mankind and like are both very valiant and all that. But in this scene, you kind of see like Pixis was ready to be like, well, if I get sacrificed and die for the good of mankind, that's the way it is. Whereas Erwin is like, fuck no, in the end, I want to survive. And, like, I'm going to do whatever needs to be done for me to survive. And I think, like, most people fall into the Erwin camp if at the end of the day. And it's just interesting to see Pixis as a character come forward. Because it kind of takes, like, a special type of person, I think, to be a Pixis. Yeah. Yep.
I agree. So, in a funny turn of events, they then take the council into custody for the same thing they were charging Irwin for. So.
What was it? Charter 6.
Yeah, Charter 6 saying that one cannot put themselves over the citizens for personal gain and that it would be treason, which is exactly what they did. It also turns out the guy they had impersonating the king just looked menacing, and he was just like a simpleton or something.
Okay, so wait, isn't that Kenny's dad? Isn't that what's going on? Don't we find that out later?
Kenny's dad died. Or grandpa did. I don't know. It may be his dad.
Somebody
told me.
Yeah, the guy who like Kenny talks to in the hospital, who's his dad, like looks like a lot of people in the show. So I was like really confused for a minute.
Yeah, no,
I'm not really sure.
Because when that scene comes up later, I just kept thinking, oh, that's the guy who was pretending to be the king. But like maybe they just
you might be right.
Because that's what I thought.
I think you may be right, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so he just was pretending to be, but like really he's kind of just dumb. And he just smirks the entire time. Like the whole time he's sitting on the throne, like it's almost as if he's deaf and like he can't hear anything that's being said because no matter what they're saying, what craziness is happening. Because at one point they're like, well, half of humanity is going to have to die. This guy's just sitting in the chair like, well, just a normal day.
He says something really funny when they like... one of the nobles gets angry at me, hits me. He's like, oh, is it time to eat? It's just like, what?
That was like my favorite part. He was so good.
Yeah, but like he's been sitting here listening to this conversation about how half humanity is going to die, and he hasn't like reacted at all. So like, what the fuck is wrong with him? Do we think that he's like just deaf, or he's just done with life? He's like, I don't give a shit about anything anymore.
I just feel like he may have been. Well, I mean, he was obviously the noble's pawn. So I think, I think he's just a simpleton. Maybe there's something wrong with him. I think the show's just going to throw him away, and we're never going to revisit this character again.
Well, I know. I was like speculating in my brain about what the fuck's wrong with this dude, because that's not normal. Like if you're like in a room and a plot like that is going down, you're going to have a reaction. Even if you're not involved, you're going to have a reaction.
Yeah.
I think the idea is he's just such a stooge. He's just like a man in a suit, and that's all he is. Like, that's the idea here, is that he's just he does nothing. The nobles run the government. He's just there to sit, and then when they tell him to eat, he eats.
Are we wasting our time talking about this guy who's totally nothing?
Yes, let's move on. Okay.
So the news of the coup gets back to Levi's group, and they jump for joy. Hange also has a possible location for the story in Aaron. And then Erwin and like Zachary get in a carriage together, and Erwin talks about what he did. It was for the best, and the usual doubts and all that stuff like that. And then we find out Zachary's kind of fucked up in the head.
Oh my
Zachary's
god!
Like, I was gonna just take them down anyway, and we'll find out more in the next episode about how screwed up he is.
Yeah, that's my rant. I'm excited. Okay, go ahead.
So Hange has some new information for the group about Rod Reese. He had a family that included like a wife, 2 sons, and I think 2 daughters. Not important. They're all dead anyways. All this being very beloved by the lands he ruled, and he himself was well opinionated by his people. But the night Wall Maria fell 5 years ago, him and his whole family was in a chapel praying. The chapel was burned down by bandits, and only Rod survived. Hange finds it strange that the chapel burned so quickly while it was mostly stone, and it isn't the typical MO of the bandits to burn down stuff and not steal first. And there was also
this is not what happened. Yeah.
And there's also no evidence of Titans being there, so that was also weird too. And it was also only Rod who saw the bandits, and it strangely happened just a few days before Historia's mother was killed by the Interior Police. They also think there might be some secret to the royal blood, which we do find out in the next episode. And this is what we should be speculating what this was about. And some weird, I don't know what to call this. Aaron dreams of himself as a woman brushing her hair and wakes up bound in some kind of underground cavern. What was that about?
Aaron is
has
questioning
some shared memories.
Aaron is questioning a lot of things about himself right now. All right.
We find out pretty much what that's all about by the end of the next episode.
We do.
But yeah, it's pretty weird.
Yes. So Armin also wonders to himself who Aaron might have possibly eaten to gain his powers, and and then right at the end, Historia walks up to Aaron, and she's just like stares at him like a horror movie.
And they're in this that underground ice cave or diamond cave. This
I can't
weird
tell
place
if it's what kind of material it's made of. Is it made of salt or ice, or because they're not cold?
Is it made of Titans?
No.
I mean,
well, who knows?
And it's just
who fucking knows.
It's cool how Historia's in this gown, and Aaron is chained up and everything.
He's bound and gagged. Come on.
Also, Aaron somehow has a 10-pack of abs in one of those shots, and I was like, Aaron, what?
Okay,
Jesus Christ!
You have to admit that this entire scene looks like an S&M play. It looks like there's about to be some shit that goes down, with a whip or something. Because the chains go all the way around the room, and he's sitting there shirtless, and he's kneeling with the gag in his mouth. Come on, you can't deny you thought of that.
No, I didn't think of that, because I was just no, they know he's a Titan, and so they're going to do something to him that he's going to turn into a Titan or something.
Well,
and
also,
so they have to keep him bound.
Yeah, no, it was all bound so he couldn't hurt himself and turn into a Titan.
Well, but the scene is so dramatic. It's overly dramatic. They could have just tied him up with a rope, but they didn't. They tied him up really dramatic style with his hands sticking out and kneeling with chains and shit. It looks pretty dramatic.
I think Leo's right though. Yeah, it's just so he can't bite himself.
That's really you're right. You're right. It is just so he can't bite himself. But I'm just saying, it's pretty dramatic.
I like your degenerate explanation. Which leads us into the next episode, Sin.
It's the perfect episode for me.
Nice.
Okay, so at the beginning of this episode, we're apparently still playing S&M with Aaron from last episode. He's still tied up in this weird-ass position. Historia comes in, and she's all like, my papa is a good man, I swear, even though he tied you up.
Nice accent.
Well, but she does kind of do that.
Historia.
And Historia's dad's eyes, I thought this the entire time, but her dad's eyes are creepy as fuck. And just based on his eyes, I don't trust him. I don't trust anything that fucker says. Just saying.
I totally agree. Like, his eyes are villain eyes.
They're
like,
weird.
They're eyes that like can easily be changed very slightly to become villain eyes. Like, so yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of comments made about how even though Eren hasn't been here before, it wouldn't be strange if he recognized it. And then they like touch his back, and I'm like, oh no, what's happening here? And then they have this like weird memory sharing psychic thing where they all like remember the same stuff like together, the three of them. And I'm assuming that the idea here is that when you eat someone, you like retain their memories. And so Eren like has these memories stored in himself. And so like when they're touching, they're like going back and forth psychically. Is that what you got out of this?
It may not be if you just eat a person. I think it's when you eat another Titan, and maybe specifically a very special type of Titan.
Okay.
Which we find out like he comes from a lineage of. There's also back in season 1, there was that moment when Eren, like, his dad basically, like, we get a flashback of his dad like telling him that you're gonna go have to find like the thing that's in the basement. He gives him like this key. Eren also sees like this injection that his dad like gave him.
Wasn't that one of the memories?
Yeah, it's in this episode too, but it was also in season 1. And then his dad importantly says like, this injection is going to cause some memory loss, but they will be able to bring your memories back. I'm sure of it. Something like that. So the they he was probably talking about is Historia and Rob Rice.
So this memory thing, I saw a little bit differently than you two. I thought whenever what they were doing was they were going to unlock his memory because it got erased from when he ended up killing his father as he tried to turn him into a Titan.
Yeah.
But then I think he accidentally got a feedback loop from Rod and got his memory of whenever his father killed that whole Titan thing.
Oh,
right
yeah,
there.
because he did get flashes of that a little bit, too.
Yeah.
There's, like, a lot of flashes of a lot of things.
Yeah, I think there was just a little back and forth there is how I took it.
Well, I thought it was just because Eren's dad, as a Titan, killed the Rice family.
Yeah, I didn't think it had anything to do with him eating his father and gaining the memories. I think he just got it from Rod himself since Rod was there.
No, I think because his dad ate the Rice family, and then he ate his dad. Like, the idea is that, like, his dad retained his, like, the Rice family's memories, and then he ate his dad, and so then he also has those memories. That was what I took from it. Like, it's like a nesting
as Kat's
doll.
About to get into,
yeah.
As Kat's about to get into, like, his dad ate Frida Rice as well, so he also has Frida Rice's memories.
Yes, because he ate his dad who ate Frida Rice. This is all fucked up. But anyway...
who never ate any vegetables.
Yep. So, but like the show makes a big reveal about the idea that Eren killed his father and ate him. But like, I feel like we all kind of knew that, and so I didn't really know why they were making a big deal out of it.
I don't know. His father looks an awful lot like the ape Titan to me.
Yeah, he does for sure.
So I don't know. If that memory of him being eaten was like fabricated or tricked him into thinking he ate him.
Well, but isn't the ape Titan... Wait, do we not know about the ape Titan? Because, like, I've been spoiled on so many things in the show, and I don't want to spoil people on things that, like, I was spoiled on. So
we don't know crap about him.
Know for sure what that thing is yet.
Yeah. Okay, there's a reason he looks like him, but it's not... It was his dad that killed them. So... that's what I'll say. We find out that Historia did not, in fact, spontaneously take care of herself all those years when she was being neglected by her mom, which, like, kind of bugged me about that story from before. Because I was like, I mean, but she's a little kid, and some of that, like, she would probably die. You know? So her half-sister, Frida, was going over and helping her out and helping take care of her. But then... every time she would leave, she would, like, make her forget about her. Yeah. Like, that's not mentally scarring or anything.
Well, we don't really know how this works, you know? Like, if she literally just can't remember anything, like, I guess it'd be okay.
There's no way that's not mentally scarring. I don't care if you can't remember. That's gonna fuck you up. That just is.
How? You won't remember it.
But you'll like know that like something is missing. You're like, I imagine emotionally you'll be like, I miss this person, but you won't remember that person.
Without
and then
the
you'll
memory,
just have
you wouldn't
like
know
a
to think
chasm
that.
of like sadness inside yourself and be like, why am I sad all the time? It's
The
like
only thing I think you would miss is like the time that was just gone and you don't know where the time went. But we also don't know how this memory like alteration works. Maybe she alters her memory so she just experienced a day sitting against the tree and she just is erased from everything else.
no.
I don't know, man. Like, it's a fantasy story.
That totally would fuck her up. There's no way you're going to do that shit to someone and it's not going to fuck them up. I'm just going to say. Okay. Also, like, I got really pissed. Her dad is so shitty. At one point in this whole reveal, because they reveal a bunch of things all at once, his dad goes on to this rant about how he had 5 children and they all died, and so did his wife. And I was like, no, bitch. You had 6 children because you also had Historia. Like, no. Because I don't know, because he went from like, oh, my family, I love my family, and like, you don't exist, and then once his family's gone, he's like, well, I guess you exist now and I have you as a kid. But like, I don't know, that pissed me off. I was like,
that's how nobility thinks. I would say. Yeah,
I know.
You don't matter until you matter.
Yeah, I was like, Historia, step on his foot. He's fucking asshole to you. So yeah, basically Historia's dad goes on this rant where Grisha, who is Aaron's dad, wanted to steal the Rice family's power because the Rice family has all this Titan power, which is Historia's family. So Grisha ate the Rices, including Frida Rice, who is Historia's half-sister, and stole all of their, and stole her power. Then he killed all of the Rices so that none of them could come after him, and then went back to be with Aaron and Aaron's mom. And then eventually had Aaron kill him.
They say the most powerful Titan in existence.
Yeah.
Which I guess is because of like the ability that has now been passed down to Aaron where you can like coordinate the different Titans.
Yeah.
That must be why. But like the reason that Aaron's dad was able to defeat her was that she was very inexperienced in like combat or fighting.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I want to make sure this is very clear because this is very confusing. So you've got 2 families. You got Aaron's family. Aaron's dad's name is Grisha, because we don't really get his name very much either. So that's good to establish again. Then you've got the Rice family, who is Historia's family. So you got Aaron's family and Historia's family. Aaron's dad killed Historia's whole family and ate Historia's sister so that he could get the power, and then gave it to Aaron by having Aaron eat him.
Yeah, it looks like he injects Aaron with the Titan, the thing that makes people into Titans. Mm-hmm. So he makes Aaron into a Titan and then has Aaron eat him to take the power. Because he trusts that Aaron will figure things out and then do whatever he's supposed to do, which we don't quite know yet. That's still sort of a mystery.
Yeah. But yeah, so, and then, then the dad, Historia's dad, is like, and miraculously, I got away, even though all of the kids and my wife were killed. And I was like, miraculously? Does anyone else smell some bullshit there? Because I smell some.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, yeah, more shit to go.
Yeah, that's suspicious. There's something going on there. And then, the scene with Kenny, all of a sudden they're having this showdown where the dad's just spilling all this stuff, and Kenny comes in and is like, a bunch of shit's going down outside, just for your information.
Yeah, there's this whole crazy Coup thing. It just happens.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, I know that was kind of fun. Awkward. And then they switch to the scene. Oh my god. Okay, this fucking scene with Zachary and the nobleman from the last episode. What the fuck? When did everyone in this show turn into secret pervs? Zach is fucking insane. He basically ties this dude up upside down, puts stockings on his feet, and has this monologue where he's like, I've always wanted to do this. This has been my goal in life, to like put stockings on your feet and like feed you shit through your asshole and just have you posed like this forever. Like, what the hell, dude?
Isn't the idea to just feed him normally, but he's upside down?
No.
There's a tube going from his anus into his mouth?
He does that.
I'm pretty sure it's so he eats his own shit.
He does that, but he also says he's going to feed him only from his bottom half. So he's gonna like feed him anally, and then when he shits, he's gonna have to eat it. That's the idea.
Okay, that's even worse. All right,
going into his ass first.
Yes.
By the way, the internet has called this lovingly the shit machine. If you see that posted everywhere, that's what that's about.
Oh boy.
Oh my god. And I'm just like, dude, this was your like twisted. I'm just imagining Zach like in the corner jacking off to the same like imagery for his whole life. Like this is just his fantasy. Like this is what he's wanted. It's just weird.
Move on, Cat.
Well, it is. It's weird. Oh, poor Leo. He's can't take it. Okay, so then once we get that scene, and obviously, like, Pixis is like, I never knew that that's what he wanted in life. And he just says it so matter-of-factly. Like, it's like, oh, that's a little strange, but whatever. And I'm like, Pixis! I love Pixis. He's amazing. Oh my gosh. So then you get the revelation that Kenny is related to Mikasa, and they're from the same family, the Ackermans. And so you get the idea that the Ackermans used to be a family that protected the king, but went against them when they started altering everybody's memories. Okay. So, and then they like became like enemies of the king because they went against him. But they apparently...
And specifically, their family is one of a few families who cannot have their memories altered.
Yes.
Or, like, they're immune to this memory alteration. So that's why they're so dangerous, because they know everybody else's memories have been altered, but they still have that information. They know what happened before. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's why the crown and the nobles can't control them. And I guess there's a couple other noble families like this who... can't have their memories altered or are immune to this effect.
Yeah, and then they also talk about how like they have power and like it awakens.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, don't do this. No.
Why not?
Because
Mikasa has always been like a god tier like combatant.
Right.
Like,
people's
it
power
explains why
shouldn't
she's like that.
People's power shouldn't become because they're like part of some weird noble family. It should be because they're badass. Like it shouldn't be like, well, they're an Ackerman, so they have mystical powers. Like no, it should be because they're awesome people and they have like strong characters. I don't know. I don't like it.
Honest,
Well,
I totally
not
agree
in
with
this
you.
world.
That's like one of my biggest problems with the Star Wars prequels. It's like, oh, they have midichlorians, therefore they're awesome. It's all about their bloodline. It's not about what they did as a person.
Yeah.
I don't like that idea either, usually.
Yeah, so that irritated me because I was like, we're really going to do this shit with the powers. So I don't know. And then also I had an issue with the idea that they are literally altering everyone in like all of humanity. They're altering everyone's memory. How would you even literally do that? Like, how would you even... Because, like, okay, I guess it would matter how the power works, right? But my idea would be that you would have to look someone in the face or something to alter their memory. And, like, how are you going to go around everywhere in the fucking world? Well, I guess it's like a city. But, like, still, you're going to miss people. You're going to miss people. There's no way to me that you're going to literally alter everyone's memory.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. I'm sure they'll at some point sort of explain that.
Hopefully,
and like say like the mechanically how they did it. Like yeah,
because that made no sense to me.
Maybe it's similar to Aaron's power, where he's like the coordinate of all the Titans. Like maybe somebody like Historia is a vessel to alter all of human memories somehow. But I don't know. That could be completely ridiculous. Who knows?
So that was the end of that episode.
Yeah, so I like these 2 episodes because we found out like
a lot,
even more about all this stuff, like all this family. Like, yeah, like Kat was saying, like I don't know if I love all this stuff about like bloodlines and how important they are, but like I guess it's sort of been headed that way for a while now, anyway. But yeah, now we have like a very clear idea of like a lot of the stuff that happened in the past. So I'm curious to see now, like how now that they've removed the fake king. And now that like Historia is poised, I guess, to become the new queen or king, whatever, I'm wondering how that's all going to play out. Because clearly, like Rob Rice wants something from Eren. I don't know if he wants Eren to die or wants to feed him to another Titan to take his powers or what. Like, I'm sure he wants Eren's power, which is Frida Rice's power, back in their own family because he knows how important that power is. But I don't know. I mean, he obviously must hold it against Eren and his father for like his entire family dying. Like he's not some saint who's going to forgive him for that. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Just have to wait and find out, I guess.
Pretty much. But I'm excited. It's been good.
It has been. Like they gave you a lot in these 2 episodes, and I have a feeling there's going to be more to come. So even if I don't personally like the way that the plot is going, but it is good to get things unfolding. So, yep.
Answered.
Yeah, answers are nice.
Yes. So.
All right. Yeah, Leo, take us into the next part.
Yeah. How about some mid-season cuts, guys?
Snip, snip, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
We're 6 episodes in. It's time to decide what we want to drop, if anything.
Yeah.
So
I'm keeping both my locks, my soft and my hard.
Which are Asobi Asobase and Harukana Receive.
Yeah. And I think you guys can agree with that, right? You enjoying those 2 shows?
I'm still enjoying both of those. Like, I think we've found stuff to talk about with Harukana Receive for sure. Like, I think it's pretty
boring,
fun. Yeah.
Harukana Receive is, but it's not like I'm angry.
I don't find
there's
it
not
boring
too much
at all.
to it. Like, but I don't want to drop it necessarily. Either.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like it's not terrible. It's just
Yeah. There's not that much better out there. I kept watching a little bit with Hane Bado, and I was just like, oh, it's still dramatic. It's just ridiculous. So I kind of appreciate Harukana and how it's just about what it's about, and it's fun,
a little bit lighter.
Nice.
I like it also because, like, even though I've played a lot of volleyball, I'm actually picking up a thing or two from this show, and I love when I learn from a show. It's like one of the best ever.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. And then Asobi is just freaking hilarious.
Yeah, it's been good. I'm keeping both my picks. I think Planet With is like really good. I know Leo's had some issues with it, like it's thinking it's like a bit generic and stuff. But like, yeah, I just like the way it's like unraveling its like plot and it's like world building. It's not like overly confusing and complicated. It's just like what it is, and it's kind of fun.
Well, for me, it only took 6 episodes before an episode was, I could say, interesting or entertaining to me. So that's what my big problem with that show is.
Yeah. And Revue Starlight is just, it's so interesting to me from like an animation standpoint and from like a weird like Revolutionary Girl Utena like influence type standpoint that I can't imagine like replacing it with anything else that we haven't been following this season. I'm still really enjoying covering that one. So yeah.
Yeah.
So how about your locks, Kat?
Okay, so like I'm gonna say I may pick some shit sometimes, but I'm also willing to always admit when I pick some shit, unlike some people here. So like I'll admit when I pick some shit, okay, and I'll change it. So
I mean, I picked it.
You got something to say?
It turned out to be entertaining.
Okay. All right, so. My soft lock Free, I'm getting rid of both of mine, honestly, because like they're both shit shows. Like Free does not have enough direction. They're just wandering around from like Bishi to Bishi, and they're not really getting anything done. They promised me fucking sports, and they didn't give me any sports, and I'm disappointed. And then I'm
disappointed that like I watched 2 seasons of Free and I really loved it, and then the time we cover a season, it's like
then
sucks.
It's shit.
Like, that's what I'm really disappointed about.
And I still say that new fucking director dropped the ball, and like he deserves to be shamed for that. because that was some shit. And then
That's because like the old director Utsumi-san or whatever, she's directing Banana Fish, which has been pretty good.
Which is amazing. And like she's doing a great job, but maybe they should have just waited for her and been like, you know what, maybe next season we do free. And so that it could have at least been decent instead of this bullshit. And then Rent Tsukumogami. It's just not like the first 2 episodes were good, and then they just like I said, slid down the shit hill. So like that's getting changed. So I know we want to change the soft lock to angle moi, and that's fine because I think that's a good pick, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So really the only issue is what we're going to replace Tsukumogami with, because I know we thought about Homes of Kyoto, but honestly I'm a little worried about that because I feel like it could easily become another shit mystery show that's like not very good. We could also pick Chio's School Road, but like we already are doing a comedy and I don't really know if we need another lighthearted comedy. Or we could go absolutely apeshit and just have like another like when we covered Junji Ito and you guys hated it, but like you have to admit it was entertaining. We could do another one of those and cover Happy Sugar Life and just make fun of how ridiculous it is. So
I mean it's your hard lock, so it's all yours, but if you want our opinions, I could do Chio or the Happy Sugar Life crazy bitch one.
But I think if it came down to those two, I would probably pick, like I said at the beginning of the season, I would probably pick Happy Sugar Life just because it would be more thought-provoking and interesting to discuss, even if it's just us hating on it.
I agree with that, and I know
people are fucked up every episode.
How fucked up these people are.
But that's entertaining.
Exactly.
It's entertaining, and it's just going to be some edge, and that's okay. And like, if you don't like it, that's fine. I think some of our listeners will really enjoy some crazy edge in their life. So yeah, we're gonna pick Happy Sugar Life, and we're gonna laugh at it and kind of hate watch it, and it'll be fun.
All right.
So
are either of those shows on Monday or Tuesday?
Oh, that's a good question. I think Angle Moi is on Tuesdays or something like that.
Okay, fill one of those days.
I always
finally have something on that day.
Isn't it weird how I always pick the first show?
You do have a record of doing that so far.
I know I don't do it on purpose, but somehow it always happens.
Just happens. Wow. So what is our new lineup then, Bcom?
So yeah, Angle Moi is on Tuesdays. Happy Sugar Life is on Fridays on Amazon. And our new lineup is everything we've been covering, but like also all of our locks we talked about: Asobi Asobase, Harukana Receive, Planet With, Revue Starlight, Cells at Work, Attack on Titan Season 3. What am I missing? Banana Fish and Sirius the Jaeger.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bye bye free. I hope you swim and sink and drown somewhere else where we don't have to care anymore. Like really, oh man, what a disappointment.
I was so upset. Also, goodbye, Angle Moi. I hope you enjoy gossiping. Or sorry, goodbye.
Not Angle Moi.
No. Goodbye, Tsukumogami. That's what I meant to say. I hope you enjoy gossiping among yourselves. We won't be there for that anymore. We're done.
I'm just glad in the end my plan worked and Kat picked.
Oh, you know what? Fuck you, Leo. Fuck you.
Yes, that's what I was waiting for.
You just love it so much. I'm telling you, you're a little bit of a masochist. That's what you are. That's okay.
All right, Kat. Why don't you close out this episode?
All right. Thanks for listening. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe to us on YouTube or to our podcast feed on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. Please follow us on Twitter at Nerdom Another for updates on new podcasts as well. Oh, also, go to our Discord because you're gonna have some fucking fun. Dude, try it out. With that, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Later, everybody.